Parayko to Fowler. Fowler tried to go to traffic to Parayko. Shot, score! Jake Neighbors. A deflection in front. Saggese with one hand on the stick. Comes back to Leddy. Over to the far side. Tucker. He scores! Tyler Tucker. Neighbors down low. Parayko centering, and it's blocked. He scored! Brayden Schenn. Getting at it with the glove. Hellebuyck, it went wide. They saucer at the fault. Bomb! Score! Deflected in front of the net. But a bomb from Justin Falk. Sundquist down the right wing. Hitting the trailer. Thomas score! 2 seconds left. Bring out the Zamboni. The Blues have tied the series 2-2. A 5-1 win after chasing Hellebuyck for the second straight game. 2 seconds left. Bring out the Zamboni. The Blues have tied the series 2-2. A 5-1 win after chasing Hellebuyck for the second straight game.
It's a 2 out of 3 now. You know, both teams won at home ice. Now we got to go to Winnipeg, and, you know, we got to try and win one on the road.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and it is a Blues celebration day here on BK back. And Ferrario. Darren Pang will join us coming up at 11:30. We will talk with the one and only Pat Maroon
Big
coming
rig.
up at 12:15. He was the one that got the fans ready to go yesterday prior to the game. It's a hard act to follow. The morning show today, Alex, had TLR on. They also had the one and only John Gruden on their show. We will do our best to follow what their lead-in performance was. The Blues over the weekend, though, Alex, you said it during our pre-show meeting. They broke the Winnipeg Jets. Explain how they did it.
They broke the Winnipeg Jets, hearing the comments from this team. Scott Arniel, after Game 3, basically said he told his team, or at least the mindset from the team was, look, we were down 3-0 in the first period. The game was over at that point. There's 40 minutes of hockey left, and you're down by 3. You were the best team in the National Hockey League. Mark Scheifele, after the game yesterday, was doing his post-game scrum and essentially saying, look, it's nothing they're doing. It's what we're doing to ourselves. Not giving the Blues any credit for what they are doing to the Winnipeg Jets. And then Connor Hellebuyck. Guys, Connor Hellebuyck is broken right now. And when Connor Hellebuyck is broken, the Winnipeg Jets are broken. They look like a bunch of lost puppies out there. They're not sure where they're supposed to go. When the Blues get in the offensive zone, they start to swarm them. The Blues are out physicaling, which, yes, that's a word. I'm creating it now. They're doing that to Winnipeg. And even when the Jets get offensive opportunities, even when they start to possess the puck, their shots are coming from the outside. They don't know how to get in on the Blues defense. And when they do, guess what? Jordan bleeping Binnington is coming up with the big-time saves. Jim Montgomery said it the best. Our goalie's making saves right now. So to me, this Winnipeg Jets team, yes, they're going back home to the big wideout that they hope is going to spark some excitement. This is a Winnipeg Jets team that has been sitting and stewing on 2 butt kickings in St. Louis, and now their goaltender doesn't look 100%. Their offense isn't showing up. They are a broken club.
Alex, yesterday after the game, I was out there with you at Enterprise Center, and I went down to the Jets locker room because we had Jordan Deacon, who did a fantastic job getting the audio from the Blues locker room. So I went over to the Jets locker room. I wanted to see what the vibe was like, and we got to talk to Mark Scheifele and Luke Schenn. I found it fascinating, Alex, the difference in the tone of the comments from Schenn versus Scheifele. And the reason why is because Schenn hasn't necessarily been a part of the ghosts of playoff past, right? He's new to this club. He's just arriving. He's like, hey, we got a really good team. We've been in these situations. Like, we're good to go. We'll be fine. Meanwhile, Scheifele, as he's talking, is just looking at the ground. And just looks like, I have no answers for you guys. Like, every question that he was asked, he was basically like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. He had no answers. And I thought Scott Arniel had same thing. He's up on the podium, and it appeared as if he was like, I don't know. He was asked about Connor Hellebuyck. He's like, I have 100% confidence in Connor Hellebuyck. Cool, man. You're probably the only one. I'm not sure Connor Hellebuyck has 100% confidence right now on Connor Hellebuyck. This team feels very fragile. And that doesn't mean that the Blues are going to win this series. The Winnipeg Jets could go back home where they've been ass kickers all year long, and they could get back to their game. It's totally in play. They did it in the first 2 games of this series. They could do it again for games 5 and 7. That's possible. But I'll tell you what, if the Blues win game 5, I see no chance that Winnipeg's coming back here to St. Louis and finding a way to win that game. So this Game 5, massive, absolutely huge Game 5, and I don't know how they could possibly have 100% confidence in what they're doing right now.
You can't. And I would love for somebody to point out to me what adjustments the Winnipeg Jets have made after Game 3 going to Game 4, because I haven't seen it. And this was one of my concerns for the Winnipeg Jets. You've got a coach. Yes, Scott Arniel's been around. He's been on the bench for playoffs before as an assistant coach. He's not been a head coach. And guys, Jim Montgomery is like that evil villain in James Bond films where he's just sitting there rubbing his hands together, smiling. He wants the opportunity to make adjustments. He said, I thrive off of going from game to game against the same team. He said, it takes me back to my college days at the University of Denver. I don't know if people remember this. He was a freaking good head coach at the University of Denver.
He's also playing mind games with the other team.
Yes.
I don't know how much it matters,
It doesn't.
but it seems like it kind of gets him going. He seems excited by it.
Hey, man.
Even if nobody around the team, Joseph versus Hexie, what are you going to do?
Ooh, Tucker's standing at the red line. What's going to happen?
Oh, boy, they've got Kessel lined up for warm-ups today. They might make a switch.
I want to see him do Hofer's in the starters net.
He might, but there have been zero adjustments from the Winnipeg Jets, in my opinion, and that's a problem because Winnipeg, after that butt kicking in game number 3, they sat in their hotel for 2 days. They skated in St. Louis. There were 2 days off to prepare for what the Blues were going to bring. And the Blues have made the adjustments. Winnipeg has not made the adjustments. So this, to me, is a very fragile team. It's a team that I don't believe has confidence in their goaltender because you start to play. We've seen this in St. Louis. When your goaltender's letting in goals that he shouldn't be letting in, you play differently. And it feels like the Winnipeg Jets are doing that. They can say all they want that we've got the utmost confidence in Connor Hellebuyck. I guarantee you there's conversations right now. Do we start Hellebuyck in Game 6 back in St. Louis?
Yeah, Game 5 I don't think is a conversation.
You play him in Game 5.
Like, he's at home. He's been very good on home ice. This is a game where you've got to go back to Connor Hellebuyck. But if anything poor happens in Game 5 and you've got a deciding Game 6, that's where things get really interesting, and that's where the butt cheeks start to get a little tight if you're the Winnipeg Jets, because you don't know if you can trust Connor Hellebuyck at that point on the road. T-Bone, you were not in the arena with us last night. You had a different perspective on that game. What was your biggest takeaway from that one?
Well, my biggest takeaway is you look at the St. Louis Blues, and they are playing with confidence. And to your guys' point, the Jets look very fragile. And look, the Blues have they've made the adjustment necessary. To your guys' point on the Jets, what is the one thing they can kind of hang their hat on right now? When things go bad, you need one thing that you can rely on, right? The Blues, it is, hey, if we're not scoring, we know we're going to at least bring body blows. Well, the Jets, can they rely on their depth of scoring? No, because outside the top line, they haven't done anything at 5-on-5. Well, maybe they can rely on their special teams. No, they're not very good at special teams in this series. Oh, well, maybe their goal. Oh, no, their goalie's not doing the job. They've got nothing they can rely on right now.
So it was interesting. In the post-game press conference, Scott Arniel was asked by one of the Jets beat writers, what can you lean on right now? Just a very simple question. And if you're Jim Montgomery, you're like, well, look, we've got a goalie, we've got this depth of scoring. There's 100 things that you can point to and say, this is what we're leaning on. He said, I'm going to keep that internal. That's strategy. It's like, no, that's not a strategy that you're leaning on.
That's nothing.
We have Connor Hellebuyck, the Vezina Trophy winner, who might be the MVP of the league this year. We're going to lean on him. Or, hey, we've got home ice. We played all year for the ability to maintain home ice in the playoffs. We're the best home ice team in the NHL. Just say that. It's a super easy answer. And he said, I'm not going to answer that right now. What?
He's trying to one-up Jim Montgomery with his game management right now.
There's no strategy in that. It's just, hey, look, we've got the best fans in the world. We're going back home. It's a super easy thing to say. Just throw a bone to the fans. That's what Jim Montgomery did so well coming off of Game 3. It's what Jordan Binnington did after Game 3. Meanwhile, the coach of the Winnipeg Jets, I don't want to say anything that could give could give any kind of ammo to the St. Louis Blues. They just seem like they're going into their shell, man. It's a weird thing to watch. I'm typically somebody that pushes back against the whole playoff narrative thing. No, man, it's real with the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, let me tell you why I think they're going into this shell and why I don't think this whiteout crowd is going to be as dangerous as they were in Games 1 and Games 2. Murat Test tweeted this out after the game last night. The Winnipeg Jets have not won a playoff game after losing one since 2019 against St. Louis.
So explain that. What do you mean?
When they have lost a playoff game since 2019, they have not won another game. They were swept by Montreal in 2021. They won game number 1 in 2023 against Vegas. Then they lost the next 4. They won game 1 in 2024 against Colorado, then lost the next 4.
So technically, they're taking that next step. And they're
They won two
toward the
games in a
Stanley
row.
Cup. They won 2 games this year.
So, and look, this is a group that they've been here. All of these guys have been on that team. You mentioned it, with the exception of Luke Shen, which is probably why they went after Luke Shen. They needed a grizzled vet who understood how to handle these postseasons. This is a group that, though, when they've lost, they have not found the ability to say, okay, let's make adjustments and rebound and push back. And they've yet to do that in this series. Now, maybe they do it in game number 5, but I have to imagine that if Connor Hellebuyck's not strong, if your special teams haven't been good, if even strength-wise you have yet to figure out how to beat Jordan Binnington with the exception of a couple of lucky bounces, yeah, they're a little panicky right now. And these 2 days off, that just benefits the Blues to heal up so that they can add those weapons to go throw the body around in the next game.
Yeah, he's struggling right now. Connor Hellebuyck 0-6 with 29 goals allowed in his last 6 road playoff games. That's good for an .835 save percentage on the road in the playoffs since the bubble. 5+ goals allowed in back-to-back games for the Winnipeg Jets. For the second time in the playoffs. They did that against Vegas. They did that 3 times in the regular season. Talking about Connor Hellebuyck, 17, 22, and 23. So he basically has the same number of 5 goals allowed in back-to-back games in the playoffs as he does in the regular season over the last 5 years. Not great. Hellebuyck pulled twice over the weekend. Thursday, Sunday here in St. Louis. How rare is that? Wanted to look this up, Alex, and it is not easy to find publicly available stats on goalies being pulled. Let's put that out there. He was pulled last year in the playoffs against the Colorado Avalanche. Once. One time he was pulled against Colorado last year. If you go back in the regular season, played 10 minutes against Seattle in March this year, was pulled after that. I think it was due to like an illness or something. It wasn't due to performance. He only allowed 1 goal in that game, but technically he was pulled in that game. Before that, 2024 against the Islanders in March, he was pulled. And then in 2023 in March, he was pulled against Edmonton. So you look at it overall. He was pulled twice during the regular season dating back to March of 2023. He played in 139 regular season games over that span, Alex. So 139 games, not pulled. Connor Hellebuyck, 14 playoff games, pulled 3 times since that time in March of 2023. It's crazy what's happening, dude. This guy is James Harden. He is Lamar Jackson. He is what used to be Clayton Kershaw. He's a choke artist in the playoff, and I can't explain why, but he seems to get inside of his own head. He looks like a shell of himself right now. That's the single biggest issue for the Winnipeg Jets, and until they get that fixed, none of the other stuff matters.
Yep. No, it doesn't. I mean, they can sit there, and the reason they have nothing to fall back on is because the thing that they fall back on is their goaltender. Jim Montgomery can say, we've got Jordan Binnington, and Binnington will keep us in hockey games. And the thing about this is the Winnipeg Jets have yet to be in this position. You gave the numbers last night on postgame, BK. They've led, 39 minutes in this series so far? The first game, they scored with 90 seconds left and held on. The second game, they scored like a minute and 30 in.
29 minutes.
29 minutes. And then they have yet to lead with the exception of that Kyle Connor goal last night or yesterday afternoon, and then the Blues pushed it away. The Blues have blown Winnipeg out of the water. Winnipeg has beaten the Blues on buzzer beaters in both games.
The Blues have been tied or ahead in 211 of the 240 minutes played so far in this series.
Yeah.
Tied or ahead.
So this is why this team doesn't know what to do. Right now, they're looking around at each other saying, how do we dig ourselves out of this? Because it's not Hellebuyck, it's not our offense, it's not our special teams, it sure as heck is not our coach. How do we get out of this?
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. Darren Pang will join us in a little more than 15 minutes. We will also talk to Katie Wu coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. We will have Pat Maroon joining us in the 12 o'clock hour. And we are going to give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll coming up later on in the show today. It's a big one for us here in BK and Ferrario. We talk more Blues next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So T-Bone texted us this yesterday. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about it a little bit, T-Bone, because the Blues came into this series, and yes, they had that big win against Utah, final game of the regular season. They looked amazing in that game. But otherwise, really for the most part, they struggled to find any kind of an identity, anything that they could lean on since Dylan Holloway went down with the injury. And T-Bone, you said over the last couple of games, your biggest takeaway for the Blues is that they seem to have found that identity. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, thinking back to when they lost Dylan Holloway, it was pack mentality when he was healthy with the team, and then it kind of dissipated. Right, we had all the questions about the third line. We even ran through scenarios of like, do you play Dvorsky on the wing with Sundqvist as his centerman? And the Blues just fell off until games 3 and 4. Up until that point, the Blues had been kind of scuffling, and sure, they had the win against the Utah Hockey Club. Look, they scored 3 in the first period, and Utah said, okay, 1, 2, 3, Cancun, our season's over. I think these games here at home, the Blues, I don't think they've established a new identity. I think they finally found their old identity back. And what I mean by that is Texier has fit like a glove now on that third line. They have figured out what they wanted to do on that third line with Texier, Sundqvist, and Bolduc, and they are getting back into the cycle game, holding on to possession of the puck in the offensive zone, which was not a thing they were able to do in game 1 and 2 in Winnipeg. And then the other thing, and I talked about this when we did post-game together after game 3, man, their defensemen are now back to just shooting the ever-living crap out of the puck. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable how much they are getting in the rush. They're playing almost positionless hockey when they get in the offensive zone. And now that they've got their defensemen firing on all cylinders, you've seen the offense really take off. The cycle game has taken off with them in the offensive zone. It just feels like that Blues team we saw during that 12-game winning streak. They have finally figured things out once again now without Dylan Holloway. Now that everybody's kind of settled in to their new roles without him, they look like the team we saw during the 12-game winning streak.
Alex, that's the thing I wanted to hone in on with you is the defensemen and their shooting. Just like not even necessarily shots on goal, but just shot attempts. Mm-hmm. You look at the first 2 games of this series when it was in Winnipeg. The Blues defensemen had a combined 25 shot attempts in the first 2 games. They had 50 shot attempts over the last 2 games. Just completely changed the way that they were playing. And it's ironic that when you're getting those shots from out high, those are not considered to be high danger chances. And yet they are creating high danger chances for the Blues. The Blues were out high danger chanced 25-8 in the first 2 games of this series. Over the last 2, they have out high danger chance the Winnipeg Jets 24-17. So it's flipped. Everything about this series has flipped in the 2 games where the respective teams were at home. The Blues found something with their defensemen taking those shots. The question that I have on that, though, Alex, is a lot of that was tied to Tyler Tucker, who scored the goal yesterday, but it goes beyond that. It's just his ability to get the puck through the traffic, get it into the front of the net, and now your forwards can go to work right in front of Connor Hellebuyck. We don't know his status right now. Yesterday, when asked about Tyler Tucker, Jim Montgomery said, listen, I don't have anything for you right now. We'll try to have an update for you guys tomorrow. My guess is today he'll say something to the effect of, yeah, he's day-to-day. Yeah. We'll see. We'll get more to you guys later on, and then he won't get anything to us until we get to game time, and then it will be a game time decision. That's my assumption on what this will look like.
And then in the offseason, you'll find out that he had off-season surgery, and you're like, oh, so he wasn't available
to be clear,
ever.
We do not know anything about any of that, but
that's how playoffs go, though.
Yeah, so if he were to miss Game 5 or potentially even beyond, does that change at all any of what we're talking about here with the Blues' ability to get those pucks on net from their defensemen, Alex?
Yes and no. Like, on the yes front, like, look, Tyler Tucker is a guy that Ryan Suter is not, to the point of, like, when the puck is on Tucker's stick, he just shoots. Doesn't even think. And he's fine with pinching in, and I don't think Ryan Suter typically does that. Now, why I would say, no, it's not going to affect it is because Ryan Suter was not happy about being scratched. But Jim Montgomery went with a reason why, and then Ryan Suter sat up top and saw what Jim Montgomery wanted. So I think Ryan Suter can provide that. Look, we're talking about somebody who plays somewhere between 15 and 17 minutes a night. I think Ryan Suter is fine with that. Frankly, we saw the guy play 23 minutes a night with the top pair and was really good for the Blues. I'm thinking he's going to be refreshed. I think he's going to bring that physical play that he typically does, and he's not going to provide the offense that Tyler Tucker can, but I don't think you need the offense from Tyler Tucker. That's just secondary. Really what we're talking about here is the offense from Fowler, Falk, Parayko, and Broberg. Those are the guys that generate offense, and Ryan Suter just needs to join into the club of, look, when a puck is on your stick, put it on net. The defensemen are getting active right now, which I looked at these numbers last night. In the first 57 games of the season, the defensive core's top 7 guys had 95 points. And in the final 25 games, they had 67 points. So this team just got better offensively with their defensemen jumping into the rush.
The first, say that again?
95 points in 57 games.
Okay.
And then in the final 25 games, they had 67 points. Yeah.
I was like, that seemed like a bigger number in the first one.
Yeah.
That's Dave's fight. Gotcha.
Yeah. So the reason you're seeing these points from the defensemen is, one, they're jumping into the rush with the forwards, and that's where Winnipeg really doesn't have an answer. Because they're like, wait, Parayko's a forward? I thought he was a defense. They're playing that positionless hockey that Joey's talked about. But they're also generating this offense because guys are in front of the net.
100%.
And this is why I think Suter will be fine fitting in on a third pair with Nick Leddy. As long as he's good defensively, which I think Tucker's been very good in front of his own net. If Suter just puts pucks on net, the forwards are doing the rest. Think of these goals that have been scored. Neighbors with the deflection. The Falk goal was just a butt shot off of the Winnipeg Jets, but he was defending a Blues player in front of the net.
Correct.
And the Tyler Tucker goal, you drew two Winnipeg Jets players into the front of Connor Hellebuyck, and he couldn't see it. So I'm not worried about Suter joining in. The dude is 40 years old. He knows how to play hockey, specifically in the playoffs. The Blues just have to keep the same recipe going of jump into the rush, create odd man rushes thanks to your defensemen, and put pucks on net.
Plenty more on the Blues throughout the day today. Darren Pang's going to join us here in just a little bit. Pat Maroon, the hometown hero, Stanley Cup champion. He got the crowd going yesterday prior to game number 4, and he will join us on the show coming up at 12:15. We will also give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll. Plenty to get into today here on BK and Ferrario. Darren Pang joins the show next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Yesterday, the St. Louis Blues took down the Winnipeg Jets 5-1 as they've evened up the series at 2 games apiece. Game 5 will be on Wednesday. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with Alex Ferrario, and then puck drop at 8:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. The Sports Center is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Londoff.com. Chevy, together that we drive. Are you kidding me?
And a shot coming from Justin Falk, sailed high, 2 seconds left. Bring out the Zamboni. The Blues have tied the series 2-2. A 5-1 win after chasing Hellebuyck for the second straight game.
That's what it sounded like right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN yesterday as they win Game 4 and tie this series at 2 games apiece against the Winnipeg Jets as the series now turns back to Winnipeg for Game 5 on Wednesday. Darren Pang was on the call yesterday as part of Turner's coverage of the Blues versus the Jets series. He joins us now via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Panger, we appreciate the time as always. What was it like to be back here in St. Louis for playoff hockey yesterday?
Well, it was fantastic. It rekindled a lot of memories. I know there had been some playoff series since then, but you remember from 19, you go through a situation where they're in the bubble, you've got COVID. It's not the same because of the broadcast positions and just because of the way it was, and then not being in the playoffs. And so, yeah, I was really excited to go back for Game 4. Just honestly, the minute you pull into the parking garage, the minute you say hello to everybody down there, and then you go through and you see Jimmy Mayer, and then you see, you see all the guys, and it's just a familiar area for me. And even to the certain extent, I've seen, Jordan Binnington's mom and dad. Haven't seen them in a little while, and seen some of the family members. So more to it than just hockey, just a lot of friends along the way too. And then besides that, Alex, the atmosphere was unreal. I wasn't sure what to expect with a 12 o'clock start, but it was clear that 19,000 fans went to Colby Clark's before the game and got themselves ready.
Panger, you're like that little kid's blankie though. When I see you in between the benches for home games, I'm like, oh, Panger's down there. You just get that good feeling. So it was great to see you, obviously, at Enterprise Center. And Panger, let's just talk about the series, because speaking of rekindling some of those flames, it's got to feel a little of 2019 for you, seeing how the Blues are performing in this series against this Winnipeg Jets squad.
Yeah, well, Winnipeg is tough as always. I mean, as they were in 2019, I always felt that if Winnipeg were to have beaten the Blues in 19, they could have gone all the way and done the same thing the Blues did. So I got a lot of respect for the city and for the arena they play in, and obviously the team that they built in a place in Canada that, it's hard to get to. It's cold in the winter, and yet players, when they put on their gear, they're proud to be members there. So I look at it now and I go, okay, what are the keys? How did this series, turn? Home ice advantage. I mean, that's a big thing. Last change. Your best players beating out the other team's best players. It's quite clear that happened. Didn't see much from Scheifele. Kyle Connor scored the 1 goal, but I don't recall one singular play that I went, whoa, look out, they're on a mission right here. In fact, the other thing I saw was the fourth line of the Blues was as advertised. Started the game, got on the forecheck, played playoff hockey, and then obviously, I think Hellebuyck got some bad breaks when I looked at all the goals again today, but he didn't make and sprinkle in any great superlative saves, whereas Jordan Binnington was in full control of his crease, and pucks that came from the point, just like Hellebuyck, somehow the defensemen of the Blues and Binnington were able to find them. But at the end of the day, I think as I evaluate what I've seen so far, the D core of the Winnipeg of the Blues is far superior right now than the D core of the Winnipeg Jets, and that's the difference for me.
A big part of that, Panger, is what the Blues are doing offensively from their defense. Man, they got them activated over the last couple of games, 50 total shot attempts. They only had 25 combined in the first 2 games of this series. How have you seen that impact this series over the last couple with what the Blues are doing offensively from their defensemen?
Well, I don't think it's any secret that, and I talked to Scott Arneal, head coach of Winnipeg, before the game, that what the Blues have done both in their own zone, getting up the ice, and then getting into the offensive zone and creating a lot of trouble because there's a lot of movement. And I think Cam Fowler's been the best player that I've seen so far, actually. I might even say in the entire playoffs. Getting into the offensive zone, not staying stationary, constant movement, constant flow, and that's causing a real distraction for Winnipeg. So besides getting the 6 points, and that's always a bonus, I just think it's the way they're moving the puck up the ice and the way they're moving once they get into the offensive zone. Now, listen, in saying that, I really thought that the wingers of Winnipeg early in the game did a really good job of pressuring the D. As the game wore on, it's almost like the Winnipeg Jets forwards, the wingers, said uncle. They just didn't want to make the effort to get up there. And so I think that was a big difference. And, you know, I don't think there's any big fear or factor of a big, heavy shot. Justin Falk can shoot it hard. Colton Parayko can shoot it hard. Fowler's very intelligent back there. But I don't see a bomb coming from any of the D on the Winnipeg Jets. So I think if you're the Blues, you say, well, let them shoot it. Well, let's take away the most dangerous players, Kyle Connor, safely. If Iafallo comes back, take care of them, collapse down low, and allow them to shoot from the point, you know, because for me, I don't think there's a huge threat back there.
Panger, you're always my reference point when talking about goaltenders and their confidence in between the pipes. And then the conversation you and I used to have about Jordan Binnington, you'd say, watch him because when he's confident, he's at the top of the crease. He's always out. He's aggressive. He's challenging. Are we seeing a less confident Connor Hellebuyck in between the pipes for Winnipeg?
You know, it's a really good way to phrase the question because there's no chance for me to get inside his head. From the time I've known him, he's a very stubborn goaltender, which, you know, so is Jordan Binnington, so is every great goaltender. They're stubborn. You know, if somebody says you're really struggling, they battle you. You know, they confront you. If you say you're really full of confidence, they combat you. They battle you. So I will say this, that when he left the crease, I think he kind of left it like, I'm okay to get out of this crease. But then from what I understand, I mean, for sure, we monitored on our broadcast, and I'm sure JK did as well, that he did not return to the bench. And Brendan Burke does our play-by-play on TNT, and he asked me, well, you know, what do you think of that? And I said, I can only say what I would do. What I would do if I got pulled from a playoff game is I would go back to the room. I'd probably break a stick or, you know, do whatever you do. And then I would get a towel, and then I'd go back on that bench and support my guys. Because you don't know you got to watch what happens in the game. And you have to be aware of it. So I was disappointed, that's just me, that he didn't go back to the bench. I understood that he was in dress clothes. Some security guy said to me, he goes, yep, he was in dress clothes. About 5 minutes later, I was like, oh, well, that's different. So now I don't want to I'm not going to throw that out there. That came from a security guard. I didn't see it myself, but, you know, so is he a goaltender that's frustrated with the lack of D in front of him? Or was he a goaltender that thought, man, I got some rotten bounces in this game. You know, there was nothing clean about the game. Or are they picking me apart and the same old's happening? And that, you know, that might be part of it too, that the frustrations of lack of playoff success after great regular season success is maybe getting to him a little bit.
Darren Pang joining us for another couple of minutes here on BK and Ferrario. Of course, hockey broadcaster for Turner Sports, also on Twitter at Panger40. Pang, I did want to ask you a follow-up on Hellebuyck because his playoff, the lack of success is jarring. This is a guy that, I mean, he's in consideration this year for the Hart Trophy. He's among the best goalies in the world, regardless of the specific rankings that anybody would have. But in his last 6 road playoff games, he's 0-6, and he's allowed 29 goals with an .835 save percentage. He's now been pulled in each of the last 2 games here in St. Louis, something that only happened 3 times in the regular season in the last few seasons. What do you attribute this to? Is there anything that can explain his lack of success on the road, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's a lack of, you know, athleticism with some of the goalies in the league. You know, they're perfectly suited for, you know, a player coming off the wing, an angle shot, getting themselves set, getting set straight up in the slot, and able to establish your athletic position and make a save. And then there's some goalies that, you know, in the playoffs, there's a lot of great plays being made, and they don't have the ability to maybe read that or move side to side. I've seen a little bit of that with Stuart Skinner. I saw a little bit of that last year with Colorado against Connor Hellebuyck, getting him to move, getting him to freeze him, and then having to use your quick footwork or athleticism. And that's, quite frankly, one thing that Jordan Binnington has over a lot of goalies in the league is that if it's not perfect, it's okay. He still battles through it. If the puck's lying around in the crease and it's loose, he does whatever it takes to get a paddle on it, to get a blocker on it, to scoop up the puck. And again, I go back to it. Some guys just don't have that ability. So why is he not having success? I think the longer series goes, the more you find the video. Every team, in case you don't know this, every team, they've got, they've got 9,000 pages of analytics. They got matchup pages, they got numbers, and that gets tiring. What most of the players like to see is the loop of goals against, loop of where they shot against a particular goaltender, where that goaltender had success, and then they want to see a loop of situations where, how did we score on this goalie? When you get that ingrained into your head and you stay very focused and disciplined as a shooter, that's when you can pick apart a goaltender. So I just think that the greatest goaltenders in the world that have gone all the way to 16 wins, they have an ability to adapt to the shooters. And I'm not sure if Connor's adapting to the shots, to the high shots, to the screens, to the battles in front, to the east-west movement, left to right, or right to left. So, those are things. That's just hockey, and that's why I'm so amazed at the greatest goalies in the world, because somehow they're also able to keep their book fresh, and they can counterbalance what the players are doing against them. And maybe Connor just doesn't see it that way. Maybe he's a goaltender that has to find more battle into his game and less of the perfect technique into his game.
Panger, final one for me, and we always appreciate the time with your very busy schedule. I know, probably hopping on a flight to head to another city today. But in terms of this next game, though, we've seen both teams win both games on home ice, but now a best of 7 becomes a best of 3. What changes or adjustments do you expect in this game compared to the first 4?
Well, they'll take away the D as much as possible. I think the focus for Scott Arniel will be that the wingers have to push up hard and heavy against the Blues D. Because if they continue to allow the kind of room that Cam Fowler and the boys are getting, then, honestly, the series is going to be over in 6, in my opinion. So that'll be the biggest adjustment early on. Do they have a player coming back in Velarde? He was on the ice for the warm-up. That to me tells me he's that close. With another day off, I'd say you'd expect Velarde in the lineup. That strengthens their group a little bit as well. So they'll have more strength, more energy on it. But at the end of the day, the pressure is on one player going back to Winnipeg, and we know who that is. It's the goalie, one player. And he makes a couple of big saves early. That crowd is going to get right on his back, and he can grab the momentum. You get to him early, then that's where you've got a little chink in the armor, a little bit of a dent right there. And that's when you got to go hard, and you got to go through him. You got to go to the net. You got to get in his kitchen a little bit. You got to get him looking at the officials. You got to, all those important things. So those are the two things I would say. They'll be better against the Blues D, and the Blues have got to do the same thing against Connor Hellebuyck and get to him early.
Panger, you're always the best, sir. Thanks for taking some time with your busy schedule and hopping on. I love getting to talk hockey with you, man, and I hope we see you in round 2 in St. Louis.
Thank you very much. A little shout out to Johnny Londoff, Chevrolet. Helped me with my daughter's nice, beautiful Suburban. So attaboy, Johnny.
There you go. Little guy with gumption, Darren Pang there. I love it. Anytime we get to talk with him.
Appreciate Panger, as always, here on BK and Ferrario. The big thing he said there, Alex, to me, adjustments. Yeah. Adjustments have been the key to the series. And whether that's in net, like Connor Hellebuyck, the lack of adjustments that he's been able to make, it's pretty clear the Blues are targeting one specific area.
Yep.
When they're going up against Connor Hellebuyck. They're doing one thing, which is the defenseman getting the shots on net, and then they're targeting high. They're going high up against Connor Hellebuyck, and he has not made that adjustment yet. And it's been a consistent theme for him in recent playoff series. Meanwhile, the Blues are making the adjustments, whether it's tweaking the lineup, going with Texier on that third line, going with 11 and 7, which obviously didn't work, but they then continued to adjust by putting Texier in, putting Tyler Tucker in, going with a different style of game to match what it is that Winnipeg is giving them problems with. The Blues adjusting the way that they're getting in on their forecheck. Meanwhile, the Winnipeg Jets just continue to put the puck in deep behind Jordan Binnington and allowing him to make the pass out to the defenseman and being a one-man breakout. It's baffling to me, their lack of adjustments that they've made so far in this series. I'm shocked by it, Alex, but to me, and to hearing from Darren Pang, and then certainly us watching the games as well, that's been my theme to this series, is the lack of the adjustments from Winnipeg and Jim Montgomery and his staff seemingly having an adjustment in every single game.
Yeah, and hearing him say what Scott Arniel's adjustment is going to be is taking away the D, I agree. That's what the adjustment has to be. But if I'm a Blues fan, I'm saying, well, they didn't make that adjustment from games 3 to games 4.
They tried, and then it tapered off in 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, but then they also found ways, like the Blues just had more push than what the Winnipeg Jets were giving up. And that's why, to me, a 2-goal lead in this series is essentially a death mark for the opposition. Like, it's the moment that the opposition dies off, at least for the Winnipeg Jets. We haven't seen the Blues down by multiple goals in terms of them coming back, but it's only happened one time, and it was that 5-3 empty net goal that they scored in game number 1.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. You'll be able to hear full coverage right here in your home of the Blues 101 ESPN coming up on Wednesday night. Game number 5 in Winnipeg right here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk with the hometown hero, Stanley Cup champion Pat Maroon, coming up at 12:15. Katie Wu joins the show at 12 o'clock. But next, it's time for you guys to get your questions in on the Air Comfort Service text line at 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers next here on BK and Ferrario.
I was outside yesterday, kind of doing some yard work when I got home from the Blues game. My neighbor walked down who had just moved in up the street, and they said, man, we drove past your house 3 times, and we want to know what you used to paint your house. And that's when I told them about Rhino Shield. I told them that it's not paint, it's a ceramic coating that they use, and I gave them Darren's number because I told them, man, you got to talk to this guy because he explains it perfectly. What you're getting with Rhino Shield's work is confidence that your house is going to last the elements that they're going to go through and withstand that new look on the exterior of your home, because the coating that they use, it sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than paint that you're going to buy. It's 100% waterproof, so you don't have to worry about all of the rain and moisture. It deflects 90% of the UV rays, and it sticks to whatever type of surface you have, whether it's asbestos, brick, if you've got aluminum, block, wood, cedar, all of it can stick with Rhino Shield's work. So give Darren a call today. Like I told my neighbor, he'll come out and give you a free estimate. He'll walk you through the whole process. He'll give you his opinion of what he thinks is going to work well for your home, and you're going to love the work that Rhino Shield does. 877-25-RHINO. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you. 877-25RHINO.com.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We will be joined by Katie Wu in a little less than 10 minutes. We will be joined by Pat Maroon in about 20 minutes here on BK and Ferrario.
So
we are
many
also
people.
going to have a chance for you to score a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll. That's coming up on May 13th at Busch Stadium. Alex, are you a big Jelly Roll fan?
Not a big Jelly Roll guy.
You're a Post Malone fan, though?
Not a big Post Malone
Really?
guy. Yeah.
I'm a fan of Post Malone, not a big Jelly Roll guy.
Yeah. I've heard there's a couple of songs of Post Malone's that
I would like to go to this concert.
Bop my head,
These
too.
tickets are ridiculously expensive and hard to come by, so
good
you
news
can
is you
win
can
a
get one
pair
free
right
somewhere.
here on 101 ESPN
gonna
today
try
on
and
the
win.
show. You will also have an opportunity to do that on the Fast Lane later today, and guess what? We'll just do this all week. How about that?
Are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
BK and Ferrario in the Fast Lane. You'll have a chance all week long to score a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly
Is this
Roll.
Christmas?
So
Because Santa Claus over here is giving out free presents.
if you stay
If he
tuned throughout the show,
remembers.
That's true.
it'll be a listen and win situation. We will reference something from the show that day, and you'll be able to win a pair of tickets to see Post
Do not
Malone.
turn off that radio.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers from the 636. Has it been mentioned yet what BK's prediction was for yesterday's game? And is it the end of the BKO considering he was in attendance for each of the last two games?
It's a good point, but I feel like there's so many good luck charms that are in attendance that BK's negativity cancels out. What was your prediction yesterday?
I thought that the Winnipeg Jets would win yesterday.
Cool. So the BKO is still
I
rampant.
did think that the Blues would win on Thursday, though. I picked them in Game 3.
I think we all thought that, though. But again, two good vibes versus one bad vibes
fair.
cancel it out. He did
I
sit
was-
next to Jordan Deacon, and Jordan is like, Jordan's got to contain her excitement when she's there because she is a huge Blues fan. I told her to sit next to her. She makes so many noises when the game's going on. She's like, oh, ah, ooh. I'm like, Jordan, chill out a little bit. But she's the good luck charm that I think cancels out BK's negativity.
Yeah, I mean, I BKO'd the Blues with the Colton Parayko injury right at the deadline after I had bought into this team.
BKO'd them for good.
And then they overcame that. So this team might
Way to
just be
go.
immune to it.
Nothing is going to be able to top Jobu. Even your BKO doesn't stand a chance against Jobu.
All right, from the
Touche.
314, guys, which of the young Blues players has impressed you the most so far in this series? Can I give mine first, Alex?
Sure.
Jake Neighbors.
Wow. Okay.
Jake Neighbors has been great in this series. And I figured that his style of play would translate to playoff hockey. It's been even better than I expected for it to be. So Jake Neighbors would be my answer, and I don't know that it's close.
Yeah, mine is close, and Snuggerud to me is the one that's impressed me the most. I mean, this guy's playing on the top line with Thomas and Buchnevich that I think there are some thought he'd be a liability. He's played 9 games in the NHL, and he's going up against Connor and Scheifele and Iafallo, and has not only found ways to eliminate those guys with Thomas and Buch, but has also created offense. And I think he's been just as good in his own end than he's been in the offensive zone.
T-Bone, did you have somebody different?
Just to throw another one out there, and hopefully he's healthy enough for Game 5, would be Tucker. Dude, Tucker's
been great.
slid into the lineup seamlessly. I mean, he's bringing physicality, which the Blues wanted in the series, and he's bringing offense. So hopefully he'll be able to go for Game 5 in the series. But I would throw him in there as well. I think it's obviously Neighbor Snuggerud 1-2. I think Tucker deserves some credit for that third spot.
I agree.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 636, guys, what place do you recommend getting food from at Busch Stadium? I'll be going to multiple games in May and need some recommendations. Are there any
First
specific
off,
places?
good for
that
you
you'd
for
go
going
to?
multiple times in May.
Stadium.
I told you when I went with Katie and I went for our date night. Man, I got those pulled pork St. Louis style nachos. Oh my
Not
God.
Nacho Alberti?
No, it wasn't that one. It was another one. And I don't remember which one it was called, but it had like St. Louis style barbecue. Because I had to wait like 25 minutes because they had ran out of pulled pork and they were smoking new ones.
Oh, fresh
worth
pulled
the
pork.
freaking wait.
Mayo Ketchup, I think they've got one in Busch
That's a
Stadium.
move.
That's a good spot to go to. That's where we're going to go. We got tickets coming up here shortly. Me and my dad, we're going to go get that. I know already. He's already talking about
Go
it.
get some crumble. Those cookies.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. How far away do you think Winnipeg is from breaking this team up? And what would it take to get Morrissey to pair with Parayko? I think that's not happening.
No.
I don't think that Winnipeg's going to break up this team after this season. I think you have to keep on going, man. You're committed.
Yeah, you're not breaking. There's nobody to break up. Like, Ehlers might be gone because I don't think they're going to sign him to a contract, and maybe they do because they feel like it's desperate. Like, there's pieces that are, like, potentially gone. Their top 4 is in place for the next 2 years. You've got Scheifele locked up. You've got Connor locked up for 2 years. You've got some younger players in Velarde. You're in a good spot. Well, the differences will come with the coaching staff because if this is the mindset of Scott Arniel, and there are going to be a lot of big-name coaches available this offseason, I could see Winnipeg, if they get bounced in 6 games, I could see them making a change to the coach.
All right, last thing here from the 314. Guys, any update on Holloway? I don't know how else to say this other than I don't think anybody's expecting him back in this series. So,
yeah.
No, there is no true legitimate update, but the fact that there has been no legitimate update speaks to he's a ways away. Velarde was a guy that got onto the ice like a week ago for Winnipeg, and then now he's just getting to the place where he could potentially return to the series. So think about that with Dylan Holloway. Think about Parayko. He was skating for multiple weeks with the team before he officially got back onto the ice for a game.
Yep.
It's going to be a while, I would assume, for Dylan Holloway.
Monty was asked about it the other day, and he just kind of looked at the individual, and I forget who asked it, but he kind of had a smirk on his face, and he said, look, nothing, no update. They said, is he skating? And he said, I don't know.
Yeah,
so if they don't know, he's skating on his own, if he's skating on his own. So, yeah, I mean, he's not with the team, which tells you he's not going to be back anytime soon.
I would say if you're a Blues fan, just expect him not to return at any point in the playoffs, and then if he does, it's a pleasant surprise.
I'd agree with that.
Coming up in 15 minutes, Pat Maroon. He got the Blues fans going yesterday out at the arena. He's going to join us here on BK and Ferrario. Katie Wu, though, Cardinals insider, joins us next to discuss a pretty solid weekend for the Cards against the Brewers here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, Cardinals insider for The Athletic. She's joining us. Katie Wu is here on BK and Ferrario, as she does each and every Monday here on the show. Cardinals win 2 out of 3, Alex, over the weekend against the Milwaukee Brewers. Wasn't exactly the lead of the show today because of what the Blues were able to do on Sunday afternoon. But, Katie, not a bad weekend when you're able to take 2 of 3 from the Brewers.
Not a bad weekend at all, guys. I mean, yeah, Sundays was a clunker, but those things happen. It's been a minute since one of the starters didn't have a great start. But taking 2 out of 3 from the Brewers, especially the way that they did late inning action on both Friday and Saturday night, kind of sealed the deal for both wins. I thought it was a good series and desperately needed after that road trip. Let's see if the Cardinals can change their road luck around during this 4-game short road trip to Cincinnati, my favorite city of all time.
Yeah, I'm sure you're really excited
Skyline
to get up
chili.
there. Have you had Skyline chili, Katie?
I had a bite because I felt like I had to.
Sure.
That was probably part of my first year hazing program.
And you regretted
I hated it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I get that. I look at it, and it makes my IBS upset.
I feel like every
I couldn't do it. I can't. I no judgment. People are into what they're into, but Skyline chili, not for me.
I feel like every city has something like that where, like, in that town, you're very protective of it.
Yeah, BK with Provel cheese. He hates it.
Yeah,
We all love
it's
it.
a St. Louis thing, right? It's the St. Louis style pizza. If you're from here, you're protective of it. And if you're not from here, Katie, you fit into this category. I fit into this category. I don't know how you feel about St. Louis style pizza, but for me, it's not my thing.
I'm pretty out on it. I'm sorry, but I am in on T-Rabs, so that makes up for it.
Yeah, who doesn't like
BK hates everything
fried
St. Louis,
ravioli.
though.
All right, Katie, that didn't need that laugh. Let's get into this. The news to start with is that Thomas Saggese is optioned down to AAA. They're calling up Barrero. Your surprise level to this news was what, a 2 out of 10?
Yeah, 2 out of 10. I mean, we know how the Cardinals operate with Saggese. They have not been, particularly shy about it. He's going to play if there's playing time, but if there's not playing time, he needs to go to AAA. It's frustrating, I think, from a fan perspective because Saggese has looked good offensively, especially, but he's learning the game. And there have been, multiple parts over the last 10, 14 days where you can kind of see that he's still raw to the major league level, and that's no knock on him. He's 22, 23 years old, still adjusting to the higher caliber of play. There have been plays that haven't been made, didn't cover second over the weekend, has been picked off or some trouble on the bases every now and then. So those things that he'll get better at in time, but you can really fine-tune that approach in Memphis by playing every day. Now that Mason wins, back doesn't seem to be a concern. You have Brendan Donovan back healthy again. And the Cardinals trying to work in consistent at-bats for Nolan Gorman. There really just wasn't playing time for Saggese. So he'll go back to Memphis. Barrero's up as that 26th man. He is so versatile. I mean, he can play around the infield and also all 3 outfield positions. He also is a solid bat from the right side if he can continue to find that offensive production. So I don't know how often we'll see Barrero. It's kind of a bench need. It's a little peculiar because he is coming up on that 40-man spot, so they need to make a corresponding move. Also, now that he's up on the active roster, he must stay there, so they cannot option him down. If they do, they risk losing him. So not sure quite exactly what that 40-man corresponding move will be, but with no one eligible to be transferred to the 60-day IL, we're looking at a DFA.
Katie, on Nolan Gorman specifically, we saw him get 2 starts over the weekend at DH, 1 at second base. Are we going to see a little bit more of an extended run with Nolan Gorman over this stretch and maybe less of Alec Burleson?
We are, and Ollie Marmol has said as such in Atlanta, where he said he wants to give Gorman some run. Obviously, he's not going to start against the lefty in Quintana, old friend, who looks great on Sunday. That's just not a good matchup for him. But we're going to see an extended runway for Gorman like they talked about in spring. We didn't quite see that at first because Burleson had the better spring. But now that both bats are kind of tapering off, makes sense to see what Gorman can do with that everyday play. Ollie said, hey, this is what we promised him. This is what we said. We need to keep our word on this. This is a good time to see what Gorman can do with consistent runway. Cardinals are structured so that he can DH almost every day. He can fill in at second if needed, but I think this is probably the smart play for the long-term development. I know the offense has been inconsistent over the last 2 weeks. Some guys have tapered off, Walker, Gorman, and you want to see them kind of get out of it. But that's the whole point of the season, right? When these guys struggle, can they get out of it with everyday playing time? Can they make those adjustments? We're about to see that with Gorman and Walker, too.
We're talking to Katie Wu for just another few minutes here on BK and Ferrario. Katie, the big story over the weekend was Nolan Arenado and his performance, whether it was defensively one night or the walk-off homer the next. He was great, and his numbers on the season are are solid. Good on-base percentage so far, decent slug as well. You look under the hood a little bit, it's kind of similar to what it was last year for some of the exit velocities and all that, but he's talking about himself like he's a more confident player. What have you seen from Nolan Arenado lately, and does it give you a little bit of confidence that he can be a better version of what we saw a year ago?
I'm seeing a Nolan Arenado who has come to terms with whatever the heck that offseason was and knowing that this is where he is supposed to be right now and he can't control anything else. And I think both, and I've said this before, both he and the Cardinals have done a really nice job in keeping this a professional affair. In situations like this, it is very normal for relationships to sour between the player and organization and have that bleed into the day-to-day grind of a 162-game season. But, you know, credit to Mo, to Ollie, and to Nolan. They have not let that happen. They've been total pros about it. And you're seeing Nolan just kind of take control as in, look, I have disappointed over the last 2 years. The team has disappointed over the last 2 years, really dating back to the 2022 playoffs. He knows he's a better baseball player than what he put forward in 23 and 24, and what I'm seeing is a focus on improving that. Wrote a story in The Athletic today. You know, by no means am I proclaiming that he's an all-star, but there are changes, and he looks different in ways that he has not over the last 2 years on both sides of the ball. And when I talked to both him and Ollie about it over the weekend, they credit a change in mindset. It's a rejuvenated mindset. It's someone who's focused on trying to be a better baseball player. We're seeing the results. I mean, he's hardly striking out. He's in the 99th percentile with a strikeout rate. He's making better contact. The defense, exceptional. And most importantly, he's become someone that can kind of mentor the young guys as they go through this weird transition season. So, again, I'm not saying that he's fixed, but I am saying that there are reasons to be encouraged about what he's done. And when you think about how this offseason went and how he reported to spring, I think it's been handled all around the best way possible.
All right, Katie, we'll get you out of here on this. After all of the convincing that the Cardinals tried to do on Ryan Fernandez and the runway that they've got to give these relievers, and they've got to be able to develop relievers at the big league level, Ryan Fernandez was optioned over the weekend down to AAA, and Riley O'Brien was called up just as we all had asked for the team to do a week ago. Can you help us understand what the Cardinals are trying to accomplish here by some of their public statements versus the actual moves?
They're really good at this. They are really good at messaging. I think the runway they were talking about was why they kept running Fernandez out there over the month of April. It was clear from the Boston series that he'd lost feel for his slider, but they wanted to give him the chance to figure it out. So looking back at it, having conversations after the 3-run homer in Atlanta by Eli White, a guy that everyone has totally heard of, it seems to me that that story, or what Ollie was saying was, here's why we had to keep putting him in this position. It was very clear to me after the off day that Fernandez needed to go to AAA just to get right. I mean, it was toiling with him mentally, and at that point, it's really hard to make any kind of physical changes. So I was not surprised that they made the move. I think the messaging was, here's why we kept putting him in this position. He ultimately wasn't able to figure it out after we gave him a 4-week runway, so now he's going to go to Memphis and figure it out there. Similar, you know, Chris Roycroft didn't get that long of a runway either, but if you look at the underlying metrics on his pitches, he looks much better mechanically in AAA, so they're hoping that they can get the same thing for Fernandez. This club needs a good Fernandez and a good Romero if they want to compete, you know, within the division. I think we're seeing that. But the more that I think about the messaging and what it was said, I think it was an explanation as to why Fernandez was kept being put in that spot, not that they were going to continue doing it.
That's cool. I'm with you, Katie. Should have probably said it that way then. If that was the message. Listen, I would say the same thing to them. Like, I would tell Ollie this. Like, if that was indeed what he was trying to get across, I just don't know that that was necessarily mission accomplished at the time. Like, that wasn't my interpretation of what he was saying then. I'm glad that we got the clarification, though. That's why we have Katie Wu on the show here on BK and
I'll do what I can.
Katie,
proud of you.
Appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. We'll talk with you again next week.
You got it, guys. Have a great week.
Absolutely. That's Katie Wu joining us, as she does each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario. Listen, I get it. If that's what you were trying to say, we all agree with that. Like, we said as much last week. Like, hey, they do need a healthy and a good version of Ryan Fernandez. That's the best thing for this team. Same thing is true for JoJo Romero. They've got to figure out what to do with their left-handed relievers. But it wasn't working. And so you have to send Ryan Fernandez down. And the answer that we got last week on Fernandez was basically, no, we've got to do this at the big league level. We've got to find a way to develop these guys at the big league level. And that just, it didn't hold up to any kind of scrutiny, so much so that they decided to send him down like 24 hours later. It was just a really weird situation for everybody involved. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we got to talk about the Blues beating the Jets at their own game. But next, Pat Maroon. He got you guys going yesterday at the arena. He's going to join us next here on BK and Ferrario. sounded like yesterday at the arena as they introduced Pat Maroon, who got the Blues fans going at Enterprise Center. The three-time Stanley Cup champion joins us now on BK and Ferrario via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Pat, I have to imagine that was a cool moment for you as you got the fans going yesterday for Game 4 at Enterprise. How you doing this morning, man?
Good, I'm doing great, thank you. Yeah, I flew in yesterday morning, flew back last night, so it was obviously a heck of a night for not only the fans, but those Blues players. A big win for them, big Game 4 win. Now they get to go back to Winnipeg and hopefully steal one, right? So. Really fun moment for me last night.
The big part for me, Pat, was I was surprised that the Blues were able to keep it a secret for so long. Even Shen said afterwards on the postgame, he goes, yeah, I didn't even know the big rig was here until we saw him walk back when we were walking off the ice. So you held a pretty good secret pretty long.
Yeah, I didn't want to bother those guys. It's game day. It's playoffs. I didn't want to text them, let them know I was in town. I've been through the playoffs. It's hard. You want to stay as focused as you can, and you don't want texts coming in, right? So I didn't want to bother those guys, and it was a big game for them to, tie the series up and bring it back to Winnipeg.
Pat Maroon joining us here on 101 ESPN. Pat, you've been through these things, the grind of a long playoff series. You're a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. What stood out to you yesterday as you were in the arena watching the Blues and what they were able to do against Winnipeg?
Well, I just think their fourth line has been awesome. I don't think they're scoring goals or not putting up points, but what they control with that top line last night was something special. They don't give up on pucks. They're always in your face, and it's hard to play against like that, right? They just play simple brand hockey, and they know their role in their team, and they found a way to just be in those top guys, Connor and Scheifele, every single step of the way, and they found a good job of doing that. And it was fun to watch those guys. But I think just the makeup of their team right now has been fun. They're so much. They're tenacious. They never give up on pucks, and they found their identity. And I think Monty's got them playing at the right time. And I think going into the playoffs, you got to have some momentum, and they're taking that momentum. They're carrying it in there, and obviously we all know what Jordan Binnington does when his back's, it feels like, against the wall. When he's performing against the best goalies in the league, he finds another gear, and he's so calm and collected in that.
Pat, I personally think you are the king of just getting into the opposition's head, whether it's in the regular season or the postseason. Does it feel like from you maybe watching some of these games and watching it in person last night that maybe the Blues are a little bit in the head of the Winnipeg Jets, starting to lessen their confidence in this series?
You know what? They are. It's a frustrating group right now over there, especially, when they run Hellebuyck out of their building 2 nights in a row. That's a frustrated goaltender right now, and you could see it, right? Frustration starts to creep in. They take down penalties, and the Blues capitalized last night, right? So, for them, they just got to continue to do that. I think the biggest key to me watching them is their forecheck. They can't lay off their gas on the forecheck. They got to continue that and keep hitting all their skilled players, right? You can see it. Morrissey's starting to get frustrated back there. Obviously, Hellebuyck, but you can see it in Scheifele and Connor and Lowry, those guys that, are big-time players for them, and you can see it in their faces. But for me, it's a long series, right? It's a best of 7, right? Whoever does it the best for a long period of time comes out with success. And the last 2 games, they've proven that. So they got a frustrating group over there. They just got to step on their throats now and continue that.
Pat, you've played in 163 career playoff games. You are a man that has seen a lot of playoff success in your career. When you look at guys that have had great regular season success but struggle in the playoffs, or vice versa, guys that are role players in the regular season and then their games go up another level in the playoffs, what is it about this time of the year that can bring out the best or the worst in some guys?
Well, listen, sometimes I think people don't realize the ice shrinks in the playoffs, right? It gets tighter, and when you have guys over there like the St. Louis Blues, like the Walkers of the world, Torchenkos and Fasca, like guys that just are legit just role players. They know their job, they know where they fit, and they know what they have to do every single night. And it's those guys, it's usually the bottom 6 guys that take another step in their game, which is so fun to watch. And like you said, they get a little more ice time. They get a little more confidence, and they have a role. And I think in the playoffs, regular season, everyone has kind of a role, but, the bench will be shortened. But I think come playoff time, everyone kind of has a role, and the coach will tell them that, and they do their role to the best of their abilities. And for me, the top guys like a Thomas and, Schenner and those guys are just performing at a high level right now. And, it seems like they can't be stopped. And but they got a great group over there that's, they're not as big, but, they're tenacious. They're in your face every single night. And those are the guys you want, the gamers, the Jake Neighbors of the world, the guys that are in your face, go to the dirty areas and score goals. So they've done a tremendous job of that. And like I said, they have a frustrating group over there, but they just got to keep going and keep doing that. And, there's the bottom six are the guys I always count on during the playoffs because they're the ones that do the right things and play it simple. Like our 2019 run, our fourth line was Steen, Sundqvist, and Barbashev. And, they just shut down all the top lines and got the guys going every single night. So you need guys like that every single night.
Pat, how much does that re-energize a bench? Because we've seen Jim Montgomery do that a lot this season to where, after maybe the Jets would score or after a power play that the Blues would kill off, he goes right back with that fourth line. And it seems whether they're hitting somebody, diving in front of pucks, that sparks the energy for the rest of the team.
Well, I think, they just, like I said, they play a simple brand of hockey. It's not cute. It's not backdoors or tic-tac-toes, right? They win a face-off. They, win it back to the D. The hard rims it, and now they just get on the forecheck, right, and get the energy going and, get some ozone time, right? Like I said, when they're leaning on their D and the D are getting exhausted, they don't want to keep going back for pucks, right? They're probably thinking in their heads oh, fuck, here we go again, right? So I think that's what they're doing right now, and they're setting the tone for the team right now and how to play and how to play the game and how to play in the playoffs. I think in the playoffs, all the goals are scored within the blue paint. And you kind of saw that last night, how many goals were in the blue paint last night. So, you got to go to the dirty areas and you got to be hard. And nothing comes easy in the playoffs. There's not a lot of ice out there. So you got to find ways to, get some ugly goals. But that fourth line is setting the tone every single night. And, like you said, if Winnipeg scores, they're back out there trying to set the tone again.
Pat Maroon joining us for another couple of minutes here on BK and Ferrario. Pat, you played a little bit for Jim Montgomery. You got to see what he was like as a playoff coach last year as well. Can you bring us in the room a little bit? Take us behind the scenes. What is it like to play for Jim Montgomery this time of the year?
It's just fun. He's never too high. He's never too low. He's always got the same attitude. He's fun in the locker room. He's very communicative, and he finds ways to adjust on the fly. And finds ways to, get better every single day. And I think he's done a good job with that, of changing things up when they need to change it and, being positive when you need to, but also getting on the guys when you need to, too. So he's a really good coach, a player's coach, and communicates really well of the details of the game. And, you guys know he's taking the St. Louis Blues to another level, right? And with the regular season, where they were and to where he's taking them now to, tie 2-2 with, the best team in the league. So he's just a great coach, great person, but also knows his X's and O's and his details of the game, and one to change things and one to kind of just get the guys going. And he's done a good job of that, with just staying positive and finding ways to adjust when you need to.
Well, Pat, man, I can't tell you thank you enough for hopping on with us today and taking some time out of your schedule. I haven't gotten the chance to tell you in person, but congratulations on one hell of a career and on the retirement. I'm looking forward to seeing you chugging a lot more Bud Lights at Enterprise Center moving forward.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Love it. Pat Maroon joining us. The moment I saw him, BK, when we were up in the press box, I said, I got to text him, because 100%. Anytime you get Pat Maroon in St. Louis, and I know BK took this path more than I did last week about the fans energizing the crowd. Dude, when Pat Maroon started chugging that beer, that place went bonkers, and you just knew the Blues were going to come out firing.
They've knocked it out of the park so far. The Blues, Game 3, had Chris Pronger show up on the video screen, and the crowd went crazy for that. And then in Game 4, it was Pat Maroon. I'll be curious to see what they decide to do in Game 6.
No, you're not.
6.
You know who it's going to be.
Gruden?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's going to be in the arena, and I think they will show him at some point, maybe like midway through the first period. I don't know if they haven't announced these things. Like, I know Gruden was technically the one that announced it. It's not as if the Blues put this thing out there.
Yeah, and the Blues are probably like, damn it, Jay, you're not supposed to say that.
I mean, if it is Gruden, that's a good one.
It will be.
Here's my question, though. And I don't mean this as to dismiss Gruden's popularity.
Yeah.
I really don't. Is that the guy that gets people going as much as
I think just
bringing in like David Freese, for example, for a game 6 in St. Louis?
It's a really good question, but I think because that video went so crazy,
Sure.
Blues fans know now that Gruden is like a Blues. Plus, he's tweeting after every single game about the Blues. I think that's one of those moments that you capitalize on it in the moment. If you were to do that in round 2, I don't think it plays as well as it does in round 1 in game 6 when they come home.
No, totally. If you're going to do it, now's the time.
Yeah, especially now that he's announced that he's going to be in attendance and says we're going to close them out. If they've got an opportunity to win the series, yeah, you absolutely have him do that one.
Somebody on the text line said, don't forget Tony La Russa for game 3 as well. Place went nuts, totally.
And Wilson Contreras.
Steve Ott's son a couple of times.
Oh, my God.
Steve Ott's son has been one of the biggest winners from this playoff run.
He does it every single game in the regular season. It's always a pan to Maverick. He's in the crowd somewhere, and Joey last night was hilarious afterwards. They get Ott every game, and Joey goes, Steve, last time we saw your son, he had blue hair. This time he had a blue tongue. He goes, I think he needs to limit his sugar intake. And Steve goes, well, Joey goes, I'm a little busy these days, so that one's on Mom. I got to find a way to deflect the blame.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. It's been a great show so far today because you haven't heard as much from us. Darren Bang joined us at 11:30. We talked to Katie Wu as well. And then Pat Maroon, big rig, hometown hero, 3-time Stanley Cup champion. If you missed any of our conversations thus far, be sure to check him out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com or the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find them. They are sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Coming up next, the Blues are beating the Jets at their own game. How have they done it? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues took down the Jets yesterday 5-1 as they've evened up the best-of-7 series at 2 games apiece. Game 5 will be on Wednesday. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 8:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Gerber, and Joey Vitale. And then the Cardinals took 2 of 3 from Milwaukee over the weekend. They start a 4-game set at the Cincinnati Reds tonight. 5:40 will be first pitch. Andre Palante will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Again, if you missed any of our conversations with Pat Maroon, Darren Pang, Katie Wu, all of that up on the podcast page after the show today, 101ESPN.com or the free 101 ESPN app. Now it's time to give you our thoughts on the Blues series against the Winnipeg Jets. It's now tied 2 games apiece. We head back to Winnipeg for game number 5. You'll be able to hear that, of course, on a 101 ESPN on Wednesday night. Alex, is now a best of 3. And the reason why is because the Blues are suddenly beating the Jets at their own game. The Blues goalie has outperformed the Winnipeg Jets goalie so far in this series, and Winnipeg Jets, their goalie, is up for the Vezina and potentially the Hart Trophy this year. It's a big win for the St. Louis Blues. I thought coming into this series, one of the biggest pieces in favor of the Jets was their depth of scoring, right? You do not have Dylan Holloway in this series, and that changes things for your second line. Well, joke's on me. The Blues' depth of scoring has outperformed the Jets' depth of scoring so far in this series.
Joke is on you.
And then the third thing is the offense from the defensemen. One of the keys for the Winnipeg Jets is that their defense has been really good offensively much of the season. Well, in this series, it's the Blues defensemen that are getting more active in the offense. And then if you want to go even further than that, Jets had the best power play in the NHL for most of the season. Well, it's the Blues special teams that are outperforming now the Jets special teams. Alex, if you just look at the series overall, the numbers are startlingly in favor of St. Louis. That happened over the weekend because in Winnipeg, the Jets barely squeaked out a couple of wins against the Blues. I thought they were the better team, but they barely squeaked out a couple of wins. The Blues games against the Jets, the final 10, 15 minutes of those games were formalities. They played like 25 minutes over the last 2 games. That honestly didn't matter. Mm-hmm. The Blues had it in such stark disarray for the Jets that they just had to finish up the game. That was it. They had to run out the last 20 minutes or so of these games. So when you look at this series and where we're at right now, how does it set up for the final 3 games?
To me, it sets up favoring the Blues because Winnipeg is right now answering a lot of questions about their team that they've never had to answer the questions for. They've never had to answer questions about Connor Hellebuyck this season because the guy's been great. They've never had to answer questions about their defense because they had Josh Morrissey, who put up 60-plus points. They had Neil Pionk and Dylan DeMello, who were putting up about 50 points, and all these guys were plus 20 and above this season. So now they're answering questions about defense. And they're also answering what?
Just amazing.
I know.
All of this.
Oh, I thought it was because of the way I pronounced it, which I was like, oh, yeah, that was bad.
No,
and then
you're good.
They're answering questions about where's your depth of scoring. Guys, 60% of their offense in this playoffs has come from the top line. They've scored 10 goals, and 6 of them have been Scheifele, Connor, Iafallo. And the rest have been their fourth line, Anderson, Dolan, and David Gustafsson. They got 1 goal from their middle 6, and it's Neil Pionk. So they're answering they're being asked all these questions of, well, how do you generate more even strength offense? Well, I don't know. Well, how do you get better on the power play? Well, I don't know. Well, what do you do if the Hellebuyck's not ready? I don't know. That's where the advantage is the Blues. Jim Montgomery has had an answer for everything. After game number 1, we got to be better in the third period. What do? They tightened things up. Now, they did give up that goal early on in the third, but they pushed their way back into it. The question's on, well, how do you get your defense more involved? Well, look at what they did in game number 3. The question was, well, how do you get better in terms of that penalty kill? Well, they just continued to improve there. The questions of where does the even strength offense come from if you don't have Dylan Holloway? Well, they scored 9 even strength goals in 2 games on home ice. So to me, why this is advantageous for the Blues going into game number 5 against Winnipeg is because Winnipeg's backed against the wall right now. And the question is, are you going to fight or are you going to flight? And I think personally, Winnipeg might be doing the flight method. unless they find a way to answer the bell of what the Blues are doing. And I'm not sure they have an answer to that.
That's what I find so interesting about Game 5, T-Bone. What are the answers? Are they personnel? Like, they're getting back one of their key contributors on the power play potentially for Game 5. We don't know where Gabe Vilardi is at this point health-wise. He's apparently healthy enough to return to the lineup, but is he at 100%? Because I thought we saw early in the series, Parayko was healthy enough to return. Mm-hmm. He was nowhere close to 100%. And I think he's played better. I didn't think he had his best game in Game 4, but Game 3, he was outstanding. Robert Thomas did not look like himself early on in this series. And then the last couple of games, I think he's looked great. He's been one of the key factors on how the Blues have turned this thing around. So what does Gabe Vilardi look like early on? Because they don't have the same runway for him that the Blues had with Parayko and Thomas to get back on track. And now the runway of the multiple days off between games, that's basically out for them. So maybe that helps. Maybe just going home is the factor that ends up getting them back on track. I don't know. But to me, that's the question heading into Game 5 is, what are their answers? And does their coach have them?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be interesting because, you know, when I want to go between games 2 and 3, like when we were talking about game 3, okay, well, we looked at it and you said, well, what's the goal for the Blues? Well, it's just to stop that top line, right? If you can stop the Iafallo line, maybe you're in better shape. And what ended up happening was the Blues did that because I mentioned it. We talked about it on the show. We talked about it pre and post game. Hey, the Blues were winning the special teams battle and they were winning the goaltending battle. Really, the only thing they were losing was on the top line. The Jets don't have one thing that they can even look at right now and say, this is where we're beating the Blues, because it's not with their top line now. The Blues have evened that up because they were able to slow them down here on home ice. It's not in their depth of scoring because Alex just mentioned it. They're not getting any. It's not with special teams because they're losing the special teams battle. And I don't know how on earth they could even believe in Connor Hellebuyck. They'll say all the right things. Oh, you know, he's our goaltender. He's a Vezina winner. Of course we believe in him. I don't believe you, okay? So I don't know what their advantage is. I don't think it is going to be the home ice advantage. And if we're being honest, the problem for them with going home is where's all the pressure at? It's at home. It's in Winnipeg, which is funny to say because who's the team that's playing stress-free right now? It's the Blues.
Yeah.
The
And
Blues
that's what
season's
Panger
a success.
said.
Yeah.
Panger mentioned that on with us where it's like, hey, if they get out and Hellebuyck makes a few great early saves, like, okay, the crowd gets behind him and maybe that becomes almost a rallying cry. If it's the opposite and the Blues are able to put one on early, similar to what we saw in Game 3 at home, now everybody in that arena is going to be tight. Not just the team, but also the fans, where they're all bracing for it, and they're like, oh, my God, are we really witnessing another postseason collapse for a team that was so great during the regular season? I want to give you guys the perspective from the Winnipeg Jets, because the other night I saw this on a post-game show. It's called the Illegal Curve post-game show, and it covers this thing from the Winnipeg perspective. They cover the Winnipeg Jets up there. Here's what they had to say about their team falling apart in games 3 and 4.
To me, Dave, the word that comes to mind is soft. The Jets played a soft game today. I mean, the area in front of the goaltender, Connor Hellebuyck, and then maybe to a lesser extent, Eric Comrie, was a free space for the St. Louis Blues. Exactly what you haven't seen from the Winnipeg Jets over the last number of years. St. Louis is getting to where they want to go on the ice, and there's no pushback from the Winnipeg Jets. You know, the quote from Hunter S. Thompson, kill the body, and the head comes to mind because the Jets, to me, look like a team that is shying away from the physicality that St. Louis is leveling upon them. And as a result, St. Louis is getting to do what they want because the Jets don't have the same level of fight. They don't have the same level of commitment that we have seen all season long. Right now, this Winnipeg Jets team just looks an absolute shell of itself. And I don't know that 2 days off is going to change all that much.
Alex, we see this in other sports. Teams that are great during the regular season because they take it really seriously. But then when you get into the playoffs, it's like, oh, these other teams raise their games. It starts to level things off with that team that was so great during the regular season. And then suddenly they're in a dogfight and they don't really know how to match the energy because the other team is suddenly out-competing them, and they're not used to that. That's not a normal feeling for them because during the regular season, like their goalie is a great example of this. Hellebuyck plays in like 65 games every year. He just takes the regular season more seriously than most other goalies do. He puts more into it than most other goalies do. But now you get into the playoffs, and everybody has like a laser focus on you. How do we beat you? Everybody inside of the Blues organization, every single person had a scouting report on Hellebuyck. They're not looking forward to any other games. There's no other pre-scouts. It's all focused on the Jets. And so now it is, how do we beat that team and that team alone? And the Blues are finding ways to win. And now it is incumbent upon the Winnipeg Jets to have some kind of answers. And when you hear it from their perspective, it's like, man, they're wilting under the pressure once again. They're wilting under the physicality that the Blues are imposing upon them. Those body blows that I wondered early in the season, like, is there going to be a payoff for this because of the extra days off? Is there going to be a payoff for this when they're chasing some of these hits? The answer sure appears to be yes. We've seen it pay off in game 3 and 4, and it has to do that again going into game number 5.
The Mike Tyson quote plays into this series. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And guess what? Nobody's been trying to punch Winnipeg in the mouth all season because Winnipeg is a big team. And typically when you do that, you're going to take the chance of put that team on the power play. And if you do that, then you're out of the game. You have to play them a little bit differently. That team has 10 game misconduct so far in this series right now. You know what that tells me? That tells me that it's a bunch of guys that have never been pushed around, and when they get pushed, they fight back because they're upset. Guys, Adam Lowry, their captain in game number 4, post-whistle, had his glove off and started throwing punches at a guy that wasn't ready. That's not the mindset you need of a team right now. It's calm, cool, and collected. The Blues have done a really good job of finished checks, finished through the body, and then skate away. Now, they've gotten into their extracurriculars as well, but typically it seemed like the Winnipeg Jets, especially these 2 butt kickings on home ice, Winnipeg has been trying to stir things up. And the Blues, by that point, are like, man, we're good. We don't need to worry about this. This whole series, to me, feels like that scene in Indiana Jones where the big ball is rolling down and Indiana Jones is trying to run away with it before it squashed it. The Jets are Indiana Jones right now, and like they're running. They're trying to avoid this, but that ball is not stopping because to me, these 2 days off, it's an element that I don't think people are talking enough about, but 2 days off before game 3, 2 days off before game 4, and now 2 days off before game 5, that's just the opportunity for the Blues to rest their bodies and say, cool, we'll go right back out there and throw the physical play if we need to. And Winnipeg, to me, in game 4 yesterday, felt like they tried to pull back a little bit. It's like, let's not worry about the physicality so much. Let's try and focus on offense. Blues are like, cool, that's fine, but we'll still play that style if we need to, and that's when they kind of pulled the Jets back in their direction.
I think one thing that I underestimated, because we had the question of who's this going to benefit. There's a couple days off between games 2 and 3, and then again between game 3 and 4. Now we're seeing it again between 4 and 5. Who will that benefit, right? And Jim Montgomery said to Joey and Curbs pregame, it very clearly benefits the home team. Whoever the home team was in those situations, it benefits them. So he thought because the Blues were on home ice, it could be a huge benefit to the Blues. Alex, if we're just doing this on who it benefits specifically in terms of the players, I think it really benefits Jordan Binnington. It gives him that opportunity to stay fresh throughout the playoffs. We've seen during the regular season, there have been times where the workload starts to catch up with him a little bit, and you don't get the best Jordan Binnington possible. And that's why they do the rotation the way that they do during the regular season. I think you've seen a great version of Jordan Binnington basically the entirety of this series. He's been excellent for you. And I know that we've talked so much about the offense from the defensemen, getting pucks in front of the net, creating that chaos by the forward, and then getting to work in the dirty areas. All of that is highly important. And Jordan Binnington's work in net doesn't get paid off unless you have those other things. But the thing that allows you to be this version of the team is Benner. He's been great. He makes these timely saves. He is unbelievable at playing the puck, and that's been a huge storyline in the series as well. I think that's really taken the Jets out of their game. I remember he did the exact same thing to Minnesota. That 2022 playoff series, the Blues played against the Minnesota Wild, and their entire team, like their game plan was, we get in on the forecheck, get pucks in deep, get in on the forecheck. And they couldn't find a way to do it against Binnington, and it took them out of their game, and they had no way really to adjust in that series. I think the same thing is true for Winnipeg. I think they don't know how to play when they can't get in on that forecheck because Benner is a one-man breakout right now.
Yeah, I told you the goal that Braden Shen scored was because of Jordan Binnington. If you go back and watch that, the Winnipeg Jets this series, every time Binnington has the puck behind the net, they don't chase after it. He'll hold on to it, he'll rim it around, they'll just kind of circle around the net and wait for it. But that play, Kyle Connor tried something different. He tried to chase Binnington around the net, and Binnington was like perfect because he chased him around. Binnington got the puck up to Shen, and you had a 4-on-2 the other direction. it always kills teams because when a goalie, which we mentioned this, Kevin Week said he is the best goalie in the league today that plays the puck.
He said he's one of the best he's ever seen.
Yeah, and I mean, that's saying something with Marty Brodeur, who basically had the NHL change rules because of how good he was with it.
And he said specifically, like he was asked, you put him in the Marty Brodeur conversation. He said, I don't know if he's all the way up there, but he's like the next tier below him.
But he will, and that's the part for me. So he's able to do that, which to me, I saw that change by the Winnipeg Jets. They were dumping the pucks in the corner. They didn't want Bennington to go after it. But you know what happens when you do that? Well, now you got to do a little bit more chasing, and you got to win a board battle, which typically wastes the shift for a lot of guys. So that's changed the dynamic, and I agree with that sentiment. The guy for me that these days off have really benefited is Colton Parayko because he was returning from a month-long injury. The game speed is never the same in practice. Played 23-21 against Seattle, but that was the shootout. 17-53 against Utah, then 20 minutes, then 19 minutes, then 20, then 20. To me, what's happening with Parayko is the more rest he's getting and the more games he's playing, he's getting more and more healthy, which seems odd to say. And if you're the Winnipeg Jets, that's the last thing you need. You don't need a healthy Colton Parayko because look at what he's done these last 2 games. He's jumping into the rush. He's hammering pucks right now. He feels like he's getting stronger as the series is going along.
314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line. Also have about 250 people watching and contributing over on the YouTube chat as well. YouTube.com/101ESPNSTL. Matt Mello. We've got Cat Dad Gamer over there. iRock, Average Size, Shabongas.
Whoa.
We've got a lot of stuff going on over there. A lot of conversation over in the YouTube chat. This one comes from the 314. Guys, the series is tied. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Totally agree. It's 2-2. It's a best of 3 series at this point. Winnipeg can win this series. All they have to do is just what they've done. Keep winning at home. If you win the next 2 games at home, you win the series. You've got the best home ice advantage in the NHL this season. Your goalie, yes, he's got these road issues, and I don't know how they fix them, but that's a real thing at this point. It's hard to deny. All he's got to do is be great at home. And you're getting one of your best players back in Gabe Vilardi. Maybe he brings back some scoring punch on the power play, which has been really terrible for the most part for the Jets so far in this series. Like, there's every reason, if you are a Jets fan, to believe not only are we still very much in this series, we will win this series. Totally get that perspective. But also, it is hard to watch what we have seen in the last 2 games and say to yourself, I am fully confident of all of that stuff that I just said happening. I think you're kidding yourself if you say I am, again, 100% confident all of that will take place. So that's where I'm coming from right now. What we've seen over the last 2 games sure looks to me as though the Blues have found some answers. And now it is on the Jets to respond. It is on the Jets to capitalize on the home ice advantage once again. We'll see if they're able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, and I know it's probably way too far out in front of my skis, I do feel like this series is now in favor of the Blues moving forward. Because to me, the Winnipeg Jets have not played a game to the level that the Blues played in 3 and 4. Winnipeg Jets in game number 1, they got one lucky bounce that went to Aliafalo to tie the game, and then a hell of a play set up by Kyle Connor. And in game 2, that was another bounce that went their direction.
I totally agree. Just for front end, totally agree with you. The bounces happened. The Blues got a couple of really fortunate bounces in this last
Montgomery
game.
said that too.
A puck goes off of a Jets player's ass and it goes into their net.
Yeah.
Like another one.
But to Montgomery's point, those bounces go your way when you're playing the style that the Blues are playing.
And that's what I was going to get at. The Jets also created some of those chances in the first couple of games of this series. So I'm not taking away anything that they did in games 1 and 2. The Jets beat you. Flat out beat you. They were the better team in the first couple of games. You haven't just beaten them. You have beat them down over the last 2 games. The feeling coming out of game 1 and 2 versus the feeling coming out of game 3 and 4, vastly different from either side of this thing when you look at it that way. All right, he's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Join Anthony Stalter and the 101 ESPN Street Team on Friday for a Game 6 watch party at Cafe Telegraph. Come grab some drinks, delicious food, and enjoy the Blues game on all of their big screens. Also, get registered to win 101 ESPN giveaways. It's Friday at Cafe Telegraph, located on Telegraph Road in South County. Learn more about the watch party for Game 6 with Anthony Stalter at 101ESPN.com. Coming up next, we'll hit the BK and Ferrario junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Let's dive into the junk drawer. Definitely not the rewind. That's an hour from now, though.
The
We are
BK and Ferrario junk drawer.
Ferrario. Coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, we will give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll. That is coming up on May 13th right here in St. Louis, so stay tuned for that. Alex, have you ever had any interest in climbing a mountain?
No, absolutely not.
T-Bone?
No, I'm terrified of heights.
Yeah,
Like if
same.
you could, if I told you, hey, money set aside, not a problem for you, you can take a year sabbatical and train to climb Everest.
Can I just take the year sabbatical?
No.
Oh, okay.
But
just
you
work.
could take the year sabbatical
Yeah,
and you
I'll
could go, whether it's Everest or another mountain that just fancies your interest for whatever reason. No interest in that?
No. I think the one, and I don't even know if it's considered a mountain, but the one area that I wanted to climb was in Hawaii. And I don't even know what it was called, but it was like a big trail that goes
Is
like
it a
above the
volcano?
water. No, it wasn't a volcano. Maybe it was a volcano. I don't know. But there was they said it was like a trail that you can take that like takes you above the ocean and you can like look over it. It's the one thing, but I was like, that sounds awful because I could fall off the cliff. Yeah. That's really why.
I would love to do it. I would die in doing so, but I think it would be really cool to have the opportunity to climb a mountain.
I'd love for you to take a year sabbatical, buddy.
I believe that is indeed the case. The reason I ask this question is because a student was rescued not once, but twice while trying to climb Mount Fuji. This took place over the span of exactly 1 week. 2 times he was rescued in a 1 week span while climbing Mount Fuji. Now you may ask, why did he get rescued and then decide to go right back up the same mountain that he was rescued
Why did he, Brandon?
Well, the 27-year-old Chinese native tried to climb Mount Fuji and then got altitude sickness when he got to a certain threshold and was rescued for that reason. He gets back home and he realizes, oh, bleep, I left my phone up there. Not kidding.
And your thought process is I got to go back and get it?
Correct.
I think it's broken,
3,000 meters, so 10,000 feet above sea level is where he was rescued. So he decided, I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to go find my phone. We still do not know exactly if he has indeed found his phone, but when he reached basically the same spot, he was once again helicoptered down from the mountain, being rescued from Mount Fuji.
I don't like to throw this word around a lot, but that, folks, is an idiot.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
You throw that word around actually quite a bit.
He left his
not on
phone
air.
and other items at the scene after his first rescue.
See, I don't want to go do something. I don't want to have to train for something that I probably know I'm going to. There's a 95% chance I'm going to have to get rescued from it. That doesn't sound fun to me.
It's only $28 to climb Mount Fuji.
Really?
Now, it is an active volcano. Last time that it erupted was back in 2017.
It's only 28.
that's
Excuse me,
a little-
1707. Excuse me, 1707.
It's only $28.
So it's been
1707. That's like
You'll get there.
300 years.
It's been a while.
318 years.
The United States was discovered like later than that.
1776 was the Declaration of Independence.
So yeah,
$28 to climb versus the like $3,000 medical bill that you'll have to pay when the emergency vehicles have to come get you. Yeah. And all you had to do was pay $100 to get a new phone.
If it's only $28 to go up, do they not give you? You must have to pay for the oxygen mask because like.
Yeah, I think
the
you
way
have to
this
bring
is-
your own equipment to do this stuff.
This is just to go on the trails,
Yeah.
like that, to go hike the trails.
yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
Provide
like,
your own
each of the
equipment.
different base camps is much more expensive than that.
Yeah. You know what? You should just head on over to Disney World and ride Mount Everest.
Space. Oh,
Expedition
Yeah.
Everest is the same feeling as climbing the
Same
actual
thing.
mountain.
And guess what? You don't even have to walk. And you get to see a Yeti.
There you go.
What else would you want to do?
Spoiler alert. Coming up in 15
T-Bone
minutes, we're going
said
to get
Space
into in
Mountain.
or out. 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out on BK and Ferrario. But next, Nolan Arenado's numbers look pretty good. Are we buying into the changes that we're seeing? We'll talk about it next year on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So Nolan Arenado had a really good weekend for the Cardinals. He basically won you 2 games with the walk-off and the defense that he had on Friday night. He was really good for the Cardinals this weekend. Overall this season, he's getting on base 35% of the time, which is up there with a career best number for him. He's been walking a ton so far this year. In fact, Alex, he has almost nearly double as many walks this season as he does strikeouts on the year. That's pretty damn impressive. He's not whiffing at all, which is something that you typically have become accustomed to with Nolan Arenado. But he's also not hitting the ball with much authority. It's not like he's suddenly hitting the crap out of the ball the way that he didn't a year ago. It's not like he's hitting for a ton more power than he has over the past couple of seasons. He's just taking more walks. That's really the biggest difference in terms of his overall numbers from last year to where we are this season. So I do want to ask you guys, and 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. He did have a great weekend, and I'm not taking that away from him at all. Are you buying in, though, to the improvement in overall numbers? He's got a 780 OPS this year. He had 719 OPS last year. Are you buying into the improved numbers that we are seeing right now from Nolan Arenado?
I'm buying into it because I think what you mentioned in terms of he's walking more and he's striking out less tells me that he's made an adjustment with his approach at the plate. And some of this might be Brant Brown. We've seen this narrative work for a couple of other guys. But this is what we talked about in the offseason. I didn't expect him to become a guy who was going to hit 30 bombs like we thought that he was for the longest time. I did expect him, though, because he was at rock bottom, what last year was. I expected him to make a change at some point. He's been better at the plate. He's making contact. It's not the same power hitter that Nolan Arenado was. But if you're telling me that the guy's going to have a different approach in terms of his at-bats, where he's seeing more pitches, he's making pitchers work, he's taking his walks, but he's also crushing pitches when they come his way, that to me is something to invest into, because I think Nolan Arenado has just realized I'm not the same guy that I was 3-4 years ago. Teams around Major League Baseball didn't want me. I've got to make adjustments if I want to stay in this game.
I don't know what to make of Arenado, because I lean towards no. I'm not buying into there being a change to where it will be a bounce back season, if you'll call it that, because the profile just doesn't look like it's going to sustain. And when you look at his numbers, he's not hitting for average against fastballs, but he is slugging them a little bit better than he did last year. And I don't know if that's going to be up there as well, along with this walk percentage. His walk percentage at 12.4% right now, that would be a high since 2019. He hasn't been at that mark, since 2021, since his first year with the Cardinals. I don't see that coming for him. I think he's not going to be a guy that's going to be walking like this. I think he's going to end up being more in the range where he has been the previous seasons, about 6 to 8%. I don't think it's going to be this 12% mark. So when it does, when that starts to fall back and he starts to put the ball more in play, I think based on this batted ball profile that you're seeing when you look at that Savant page where he's not hitting the ball particularly hard, it's going to lead to worse results and it's going to drag down the OPS.
But some guys can have success without hitting the ball super hard. They're outliers, but there are players that they find ways, right? They find ways to be successful and productive major leaguers without the traditional profile that you're looking for in terms of the overall analytics nerds, right? And maybe Arenado in this world could be that. But there's just nothing in the profile that's changed. He's on the ground the same amount as he was previously. He's not changing what he's swinging at. And when he does swing at them, there's not really a big change in the whiff rates or the contact rates or the exit velos. Everything is the same. Everything. Even swing decisions. The percentage of times that he's swinging at the plate against any pitch that you want to throw out there, it's the same. If you look at the expected numbers against those pitches, for the most part, except for breaking balls, he's a little better this year against breaking balls than he was over the past couple of seasons. But otherwise, it's basically the same. So, to me, this looks like it's a blip on the radar. It looks like he's gone up against a few pitchers that aren't getting into the zone, and he's doing a good job of not swinging at the stuff outside of the zone. And so he's taking his walks, and that's boosting the production, but his profile traditionally is not such that I expect that to be the case long term. So, 25 games into the season, really nice on-base percentage. I think it'll probably settle somewhere around that 320, 330 range. And when he does, if you don't boost up that slugging percentage again, you'll be back in that low 700s OPS range, which is not a bad player. You can live with that if you're the Cardinals, because the expectations have changed for him. You're not expecting him to be that perennial all-star MVP consideration type of a player again. But it just means that what you're seeing right now is more of a mirage than it is anything real. And to me, I would probably bet on that right now. Again, that is not to suggest that Arenado's a bad player or that he will become a bad player. but I think he's going to settle into that like above league average, really nice, solid defensively, plus player at third, but not in the all-star MVP consideration type of a player.
Which I don't think is a bad thing for this Cardinals team.
It's fine.
Because you're passing the torch in that sense. You're looking for somebody to take over for Nolan Arenado. It means your offense isn't going to be as great as you hoped it would. But look, right now you're trying to figure out who other guys are. And again, if a middle of the order bat is not going to be that power hitter for you, if you can be somebody who is still assisting the offense in terms of getting on base, making the pitcher add more pitches to his workload, to me, that's at least advancing the ball a little bit for the Cardinals.
No doubt. And he seems to have a good situational hitter approach right now. Like some of that stuff is very real, Alex. And I know Saggese is somebody that we wanted to talk about today. He got sent back down to AAA. T-Bone called this the moment that they decided to keep him around last time, where it was like, hey, Saggese, yeah, he's here right now, but Donovan just got hurt. He had to deal with the rib injury thing. They keep Saggese up for an extra like 4 days for insurance just in case that Donovan had to go on the IL or anything. And then yesterday they make the call of, hey, Saggese, you're not getting any playing time right now. We're going to call up Barrera because that's his role. He's the one that's going to be able to be into that 26th man, what we affectionately call the Taylor Motter role. Hey, please sit on the bench and please do not move. Be a great person inside of the clubhouse, and otherwise you're just going to hang out with the team for the next couple of weeks at a minimum. Saggese goes back down. And the reason I bring it up in regards to Arenado, but also Brendan Donovan, Katie Wu had this on her podcast the other day, Alex. She was talking about Saggese and how close he has become with Brendan Donovan. And he has apparently been following him around Donnie like he's a little duckling for his mother. And he's like, at every turn, he is trying to learn from Donnie. And that is why players like Arenado and Donovan, you want to keep them around, is just for the young guys to continue to get as much information as humanly possible.
Yeah.
How do you go about your business? How do you watch video? What are you doing pregame? What are you doing postgame to make sure your body is prepared to go for the next day? That is some of the hidden value beyond just the at-bats that Thomas Saggese was able to get up at the big league level. So I do wish they would have kept him here. I wish they could have found a role for him, but Timon mentioned this previously. They don't have pinch hit opportunities right now because they're just keeping young guys in big situations late, even if it's not the best matchup for them. So if there wasn't going to be the playing time for Saggese, it was time to send him down.
Yeah, I mean, you need at-bats, which is important, and you got what he needed to up here. You got a taste of the big leagues, and now you could take that back, and you have that hunger that says, I want to go back up, and I never want to go back down to Memphis. I do agree, though, that they did the right thing by keeping him, and I would have tried to keep him as long as I could, because, yeah, you want these guys to be around, especially Brendan Donovan, who he knows that's smart by Saggese. That's probably the role I'm going to have if I'm going to be a major leaguer. This is the guy I need to watch enter a season or enter a game and say, what position am I playing? How do I prepare for that? What do I need to do from there? It's why I always believe it. I know some people think it's too much, but I always believe in that, having that chemistry in locker room and being around everybody, that really does benefit somebody before they go back to the minor leagues, because you taste it and you say, I never want to ride on a bus again. I want to be on the Jets.
Brendan Donovan, by the way, 37 hits so far this season. That ties Edgar Renteria for the second most in the months of April and March in franchise history. Do you guys know, who would you guess has the most hits for the Cardinals in the months of March and April in franchise history? It was 40 hits in March and April combined.
Albert.
That was mine, Albert.
Paul DeJong in 2019 had 40 hits in the months of March and April.
Because every
combined.
March and April, we were like, is this the Paul DeJong we thought? And then in June, it would be...
What do I most item to a contract
That's amazing.
extension?
Gave it to him in spring.
In the months of March and April combined for Paul DeJong back in 2000.
Did he even have 40 hits all last year?
That's a great question.
Because he was not very good last year, and he was with the White Sox. It probably took him 3 months.
57, or excuse me, he had 100 hits last year. In 2022, when he played for the Cardinals, he played in 77 games that year, and he had a total of 33 hits.
Man.
Unbelievable.
33% of his hits come in the first 2 months of the season. Yeah. That's a good hitter right there. That's how you get off to a hot start.
2019, he was an all-star for the Cardinals, hit 30 home runs that year, 765 OPS. And had 40 hits in the first couple of months of the season. Pretty amazing. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll continue talking about the St. Louis Blues. They've rebuilt an identity that they lived on back in 2019. But next time for In or Out here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about Classic Air Care, your HVAC system. If it's an old one or even if it's a brand new one, now is the time where it really needs that maintenance. It really needs to be taken care of before we hit the hot days of summer where we're looking at 100+ degrees every single day. Classic Air Care, man, they come out and they make sure that your unit's able to get you through the seasons. Whether it's the heat of the summer or the freezing cold winter, I use Classic Air Care for our HVAC system. Have been using them since 2016, and I speak so highly because my dad has been using them since he's owned a home. And it all comes down to the customer service. It all comes out to the technicians, and they provide the work at Classic Air Care. I'm a part of the maintenance agreement, which what that means is twice a year in the springtime and in the fall, Classic Air Care comes out, they check the unit, they clean it, they fine-tune it, and they make sure everything's good to go before you flip that AC on permanently or you flip that heat on permanently. And the best part about it is if issues pop up between those two visits, you get priority scheduling because you are a part of that maintenance agreement. So you could give them a call today. You can also check out if you're in the market for a new HVAC system. They have financing available to you. Plus, before the month of April ends, which is a couple of days, they do have an offer where if you purchase an HVAC system, they throw in the furnace for free. Call them or schedule online today. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Ooh, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, in or out, the Blues will score at least 3 goals in Winnipeg in Game 5.
Ooh. I'm going to say in. I think this one, and I've been saying this for the last 2 games, so I have been completely wrong. I think this one will be tight. It seems to always be low-scoring games in Winnipeg. A 3-2 final score with the Blues win that I could absolutely see. So I will say in, Brandon Kiley.
I'll say in as well. I don't know if it'll be tight or not, but I think the Blues will score. I'll go even further. I'll go 4+. I think they're
calm down over there.
Connor Hellebuyck, that guy's so nervous.
He's hella messed up.
If they add That was pretty good. That was pretty good. You know, if they asked him, Brandon, you know, they wouldn't get a quote of like, "Do I look nervous?" No, they'd get the.
No, you know what's wild about it is they won't get a quote because he has not spoken to the media in the last 2 games. And you know how wild that is? To Panger's point of him not being on the bench, you have been yanked in 2 games, and you have not spoke to the media once. That, to me, is a little problematic.
He's allowed at least 3 goals in 9 of his last 11 home games in the playoffs. So I talk about what's gone wrong for him on the road.
And almost all of those are probably in games 5 or 6 because they've lost 4 in a row, and he's crumbled once that happens.
Game 3 and 4 against Edmonton. Now, this is back in 2021. With 3 and 4, he allowed 4 goals and then 3 goals. Game 1 and 2 against Montreal, 4 goals and 1 goal. Game 3 and 4 against Vegas, 5 and 3. Last year against Colorado, 1 and 2, allowed 6 and 4 goals.
And that's been
then in Game 5, allowed 5 goals at home.
And that's typically when, as Murat Ates pointed out, they win 1 game and then they lose the next 4. It's like once you get into his head, there's no breaking that mold. So, yeah, I can absolutely see it happen. The tough part is I think Winnipeg is going to be very tight everywhere else.
I believe I'm in on this. I think that the Blues will score at least 3 goals. I think it might be 3, though. And that's where you're going to have to come up with Benner having another great game, keeping them at bay with 2 or fewer. Alex, what do you got?
Guys, in or out, Colton Parayko will have a statue once his career is done in St. Louis.
Parayko? Mm-hmm. I'll say out. I think Benner will. I'll say out on Parayko.
Blues just put this one out. Or they put it out a little bit ago.
They've already done it?
No. It's actually going to be right out there before Game 6. 86th career playoff game for Colton Parayko, moving him into 2nd all-time among Blues defensemen and 7th overall in franchise history. When it's all said and done, we were talking about this with Alex Pietrangelo. If Parayko remains a Blue throughout his entire career, he's going to have the most games played by a St. Louis Blue. He's going to have the most playoff games played by a St. Louis Blue, and I don't know where he's at in terms of points by a defenseman, but my guess is you'll probably see him up there. And if they win another cup at some point in his career, he could be talking about it. If anything, I think that number's going to be retired, but could also see a statue depending on how his career ends in St. Louis.
I would still lean towards out. I could see where if all those things happen, it's possible. The tough part for him right now is like when I think of that, right? Like I need to think of like a incredible story, like Jordan Binnington, incredible story, a guy that was like 5th on the depth chart, comes up, rises through the system, and is really the hero of that season. Or you've got to be like the captain hoisting the cup, and he's neither one of those right now. So that's why I would lean towards right now no on the statue. I'd even lean towards no on the jersey retirement ceremony.
Am I right? Bernie, McInnes, and Hull are the ones that have the statues right now outside of Enterprise?
Yes, Bernie, McInnes, and Hull.
It's just a really high bar to clear, man.
It is.
Like a really high bar to clear to be in that level with the Blues. So, I mean,
what about the jersey retirement? You think the jersey retirement happens?
How many players from the 2019 Blues, and I don't say this to diminish anybody's accomplishments, I really don't. How many players from the 2019 Blues can you retire their jersey number?
It's a good question.
Because you're going to do it for,
you're going to do it for Binnington, you're going to do it for Steen. And then the real question comes down to who else. And my guess is you're going to see.
I think he gets the jersey retirement.
I think you got to be a Hall of Famer and I know not everybody is in there.
No, I mean, a majority of those jersey numbers are. I think the only guys that aren't Hall of Famers are Gassoff and the Plager brothers, if I'm not mistaken.
Like my guess would be,
but the question,
Petro, Benner. I think that's it right now. I don't know. Sorry, Steen. This isn't a shot. I don't think Steen's there yet.
Steen is also
I don't think he'll get there.
The lifetime accomplished thing.
Yeah, Steen's number is I think going to be retired, mostly because of, like BK said, like you're talking about longevity with the Blues, and I think the impact that he's had on the team. The same can be said about Parayko, though, because he's going to be with them depending on, and again, all of this is kind of hesitant or tied to how long does he stay a Blue.
Sure. And does Parayko get another cup? That's the other thing, is if the Blues are able in this window to get another one for some of these guys, it also changes the conversation on them as well.
Guys, in or out, Brendan Donovan will make his first All-Star game appearance this year.
And I don't know how you don't put him in that category. Now, did you say appearance or start?
Appearance.
Because I don't think
he'll start.
I don't think he'll start. But, I mean, if you're asking me on this team, he's the All-Star. And every team gets a representative. I mean, there's nobody in your bullpen. There's nobody in your rotation. You're talking offense, and he's been your best hitter.
So far, he's been the best second baseman in baseball in terms of his production. He's at a 360 average so far on the season. Second best is Bryce Terang, who we just saw here in St. Louis. To put that in context, Bryce Terang has a 360 on base percentage. So the gap between him and everybody else at the position is pretty wide. There's also not a ton of name recognition at second base right now across Major League Baseball. So I think not only will he get an appearance this year, I think there's a decent chance he starts for the National League.
Yeah, start is where I'm going to draw the line. I don't know if he'll get there just yet. But
just don't know who's starting over him right now.
That's the tough part. I guess it just depends on where... Because, like, some of these guys will be put in positions where they're not. Like, because it all goes based on where they were listed to start the year by the organization. Like, for all I know, Betts could be listed as a second baseman for the Dodgers. I will still
I think
say...
Edman will be their second baseman.
I don't know. I don't know how they put everybody in, because Edman's like their center fielder now.
Because Ketel Marte is kind of the default answer to this, but he hasn't played in 3 weeks now.
Yeah. I'll still say in, though. I think he will be a guy that, if he doesn't get voted in by the fans, baseball will start to look, because there's nobody else that's going to get voted in as a starter from the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Then baseball actually looks at the numbers, and they actually will reward a deservable all-star, and then they will give the nod to Brendan Donovan.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are in or out on BK and Ferrario. I had a couple of these about Shedeur Sanders. Guys, in or out, Shedeur Sanders, who was not selected until the 5th round in this year's draft, will end up starting more games for the Browns this year than Russell Wilson starts in New York. I like the framing on that. Ooh. Who starts more games this year? Shedeur in Cleveland or Russell Wilson in New York?
Flacco in, right, to Cleveland?
They
because Deshaun's hurt.
They drafted Oregon's quarterback.
Dylan Gabriel.
Dylan Gabriel as well. They technically have Deshaun Watson.
I'm going to say out because Russell Wilson's going to start more this year. If you're telling me, like, from now until the end of their careers, I would think Shedeur is obviously going to start more than Russell Wilson, because I think he'll be a starter at some point. It's not just this year.
I'm in. I think Shedeur will start. I think he wins that quarterback job, and I think he keeps it in Cleveland. I think in New York, I think Russ will start the year. Dable and them will panic because their jobs are on the line, and then they'll quickly flip to Dart. So I'll say in. I think Shedeur's the best quarterback in that quarterback room in Cleveland.
Sweep it. I agree. I think Dylan Gabriel actually is pretty decent. I don't think he's a long-term starter in the league, but I actually didn't hate the Browns taking him where they did. I think he's got a chance to be, I don't know, a bottom 10 starter in the league. And I know that doesn't sound like high praise, but to get that in the 3rd round, pretty good. That's not a bad selection at all.
Your franchise quarterback in the 5th round, even better.
Yeah, I don't think Shedeur is a franchise quarterback. I think we all agree.
I don't even buy Cleveland had Gabriel over him on their draft board.
I think a lot of teams just didn't want Shedeur Sanders. They didn't want any of it. They didn't want to be a part of it. And I don't think the Browns wanted Shedeur Sanders. I think their owner said, we're going to make this pick. So, all right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we're in or out here on BK and Ferrario. From the 314, guys, in or out, Alexander Texier will be an unsung hero in this series as a revival of the third line.
I don't know if he'll be an unsung hero, but he's definitely somebody that, to me, has added another element to the Blues of why they've turned this around. They've got 4 lines that they can roll now, and they have been rolling 4 lines pretty consistently. I mean, look, Texier's not going to be anything sexy with the points. He got an assist the other night, which he deserves a lot of credit for because he kept that puck alive to get to Leddy so that Tucker could have the one-time shot. I think he's going to be a lot like what Sammy Blais was and Zach Sanford was in 2019. They're not anything that's going to jump off the page to you. They're not going to be the reason you won a series. They're going to be the reason you won a game, and it's going to be another decision by Jim Montgomery that I think is a massive adjustment.
I'm going to say in on this. I think if it wasn't for the Tucker injury and kind of the uncertainty, to me, he would be the guy that falls into this as the unsung hero. But because they were rolling 11-7 and clearly had no answers on that third line, they insert him, and now things look fine. I think, yeah, he's an unsung hero for the Blues in this series. Sure, he's not going to put up any kind of sexy stats, but you said it. He led to a goal. So I will say in. I think he will be the unsung hero to why they could win this series.
Totally in. I think that there have been 2 big moves by Jim Montgomery so far in this series, and he's been tinkering with things basically since game 2, where they went to that 11-7. And since then, he's had to make a couple of other choices. One of them is the decision to go with Texie on that third line. The other is bringing Tyler Tucker into the lineup, and both have paid off in a big way. Some news to pass along for you guys. The Springfield Thunderbirds have announced Colton Ellis, Corey Schooneman, and Nikita Alexandrov have been recalled to St. Louis. Alex, don't make too much of this, but Springfield's season did come to an end, so the Blues are able to call some of these guys up. They get to be around at the club as they go through this playoff.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, which we can talk more about this with JR tomorrow when he comes on, but I believe these aren't considered the Black Aces. These are, the Blues had a few other call-ups that they had available to them. So these guys technically could be used in the playoffs if they needed them to. Then they'll bring up the Black Aces, because my guess is you're going to see guys like Dvorsky and Stenberg join the Blues as Black Aces. These guys are the official call-ups by St. Louis to where if they need them, which makes sense. Alexandrov's got NHL experience, Schooneman's got NHL experience, and Colton Ellis is a goaltender that you want to continue the growth of the depth, and he works with David Alexander.
And if nothing else, you want him around the club.
Absolutely.
Like you mentioned, to work with David Alexander, and also to see what it looks like as Jordan Binnington is locked in the playoff series. Tee off with TMA at the return of the Dotem Golf Tournament. It is presented by Michelob Ultra, May 29th and the 30th at Oak Valley Golf Course and Resort. Get your foursome together for a fun, full day out on the course with TMA. What I understand from what they said earlier today, there are only a few spots left to join this year's TMA Dotem Golf Tournament, so be sure to lock yours in right now over at 101ESPN.com. Registration is now open, and some of the proceeds will benefit the St. Louis Hero Network in honor of Brian McKenna. Coming up later on in the hour, we'll give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll, so stay tuned for that. Blues have rebuilt an identity that they leaned on back in 2019. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues took down the Jets yesterday 5-1 as they've evened up the best-of-7 series at 2 games apiece. Game 5 will be on Wednesday night. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 8:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, and Joey Vitale. And then the Cardinals back in action today as they start a 4-game set at the Cincinnati Reds. 5:40 will be first pitch. Andre Palante will get the start for St. Louis. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, and a Daikin Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
Alex, the Blues have rebuilt the identity that they used in order to win the Cup back in 2019. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. At the end of this segment, we'll give you a chance to score a pair of tickets. See Post Malone with Jelly Roll. That's coming up on May 13th. You'll be able to have another chance later today with the Fast Lane, and we'll give you a chance all week long here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, the Blues are hitting everything that moves. I didn't feel like they were quite as physical in Game 4 as they had been in the first 3 games of this series, but it was pretty clear that those hits were paying dividends. Even on the Winnipeg Jets post-game show that we listened to a clip of earlier today on our show, they were talking about how, man, you can feel it. The Winnipeg Jets aren't as willing to go to the dirty areas as they were early in this series. And they're not clearing out the front of their net quite the same way that they were early in the series, and certainly the way that they had all season long. The Blues, when they get in on their forecheck, are getting in and forechecking hard. They are making the Jets feel those hits. Meanwhile, for Winnipeg, it's twofold. One, Jordan Binnington is just killing that forecheck half the time. And the other half, they're not getting in on it as deep as the Blues are. They're not as heavy as the Blues have been so far in this series. And that's what the Blues were able to do back in 2019. I'm not telling you that this is going to be the same run as they had in that one where they end up hoisting the cup overhead, but those hits pay dividends as the series continues to get deeper and deeper into things. We saw that especially against the Sharks. It feels like the Jets are just unwilling or unable, whichever you want to look at, to meet their tenacity in this series, to match their physicality, competitiveness, compete levels. It's been really impressive to watch.
Yeah, well, and I think part of the reason they're doing that is because Winnipeg's penalty problems and the Blues' success on the power play. Like, you can't deny that there's a little bit of hesitancy for Winnipeg of like, hey, we can't play the physical brand we want because some of our guys are crossing the line and they're going to the penalty box, and that's where St. Louis is beating us. Think of the power play situations that have taken place. They've taken the lead in Games 1 and Games 2 thanks to the power play, and you basically buried the Winnipeg Jets in Game 3 because of the power play. So some of it is on that front of it, but I think the other factor is the Blues, they play a style that when they're physical, it drags them into the game. Typically when teams play against the Blues, if they keep it boring and skate away post-whistle and don't engage the Blues, man, the Blues are searching for ways to pull themselves into the fight. And that's when you get guys that are going out of their way to try to throw body checks and trying to instill a little bit of spark on the bench. But, man, every time the Winnipeg Jets want to play this style, to me, it just lights a fire under the Blues. So I think you have to pull tape from the 2019 team. And somebody just texted in and said, I don't understand why we have to keep doing this. Why can't 25 just be 25? Why do we have to take a trip down memory lane? Man, it's not a bad thing to always take little pieces from other teams that have been successful in the team's history and try and bring it back into the fight. If you don't think Jim Montgomery remembers how that Blues team played in 2019 and says, yeah, there's a little something we could take away from that, man, you're crazy.
Well, and it's not just the Blues. Like, you look at the way that the Florida Panthers have won their cup. It was this.
Yeah.
Like, they wear teams down, and the Vegas Golden Knights, yes, they had star power, but dude, that defensive core, the size that they had, the physicality that they played with, they wore teams down as you went along. The Avalanche played a different style, certainly, than what we're seeing right now, but the Blues did that as well in 2019. So the majority of the teams that have hoisted that Stanley Cup overhead in recent years, really over the last decade almost, have played this style, and they wear teams down as the series goes along. So we point to the Blues because that's the local version of this, but I could point to other examples of the same thing.
And I think what Pat Maroon told us, which if you missed it, you can go back and listen to it up on our podcast after the show. The Blues have a fourth line that has been better than the opposition's fourth line. Now, I know that their fourth line on the Jets have scored goals, but the Blues' fourth line, think of the situations that Jim Montgomery uses them in. After the Blues score a goal, after the Jets score a goal, once a power play is finished off for the Blues, once a power play is finished off for the Jets, he is situationally picking where to play that WTF line to make sure Winnipeg can't grab momentum. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you've got a line that's playing that style, it allows everyone else to play their game. And they're finishing checks. There's moments that they go up against the Connor line. They're finishing checks on the defensemen for the Winnipeg Jets, and injuries start to take place. Logan Stanley didn't play because Scott Arniel said, yeah, look, we got guys that are banged up right now. And he said, the Blues do as well. Maybe, but the Blues don't play like they've got guys that are banged up, and I think the Winnipeg Jets are playing that way a little bit.
All right, so this comes from John Liu, who covers the Winnipeg Jets for TSN. He just tweeted this out. Connor Hellebuyck on the state of his game. Quote, I know how it needs to look. I like a lot of things. I'm not going to go and make huge changes. That being said, I'm going to be better. That's my job, and that's the foot that I'm putting forward. I can't be giving up this many goals. He then continued, am I going to play better? I am going to be better. I've studied goaltending extremely hard. I've probably studied it the most out of anyone in the world, so I know what to do and how to get to my game, so that's what I'm looking forward to doing, end quote. That's all you can say if you're Connor Hellebuyck.
Yeah.
It's the right quote. It's the right mindset going into Game 5. Man, the whole, like, am I going to make a bunch of changes? No, I think that's probably correct, but it's pretty clear that some changes need to be made.
Yeah, I mean, I got to imagine the goaltending coach is working with them on those glove sides, because I've seen David Alexander work with Binnington in terms of areas that he's gotten beat off in the past. It's what you need to say for Hellebuyck, and frankly, I'm glad he's talked, because I was a little surprised we haven't heard from him at all. He's right, though. Like, he shouldn't change much. Like, he needs to fix the glove side, but that might be an area he's been deficient at all season. If I'm the Jets head coach, the team in front of him needs to change a lot. Like,
sure.
If you know he's weak on that side, then you better defend that side harder. If you know that he's getting beat with screens in front, then you better find a way to clear the front of the net. Now, Connor Hellebuyck has to make situational saves. Like that save that he didn't make on Braden Shen, to me, that was the end of the game. The play that he had behind the net in Game 3 when Thomas picked the puck, that was it. That was the end of the game.
And that was right after the Jets had scored. They were feeling like, oh, okay, momentum's on our side. Let's go.
Game.
Let's get this going. And then, what was it, a minute later?
Yeah. I think it was a minute and 20 seconds later.
Terrible.
But think of the saves that Binnington has made in Games 3 and Games 4. The one that he made on Kyle Connor in Game 3 where he went post to post and swiped the glove. The save on Cole Perfetti that might have been a goal, but it wasn't a goal. Goalie doesn't have to be perfect. Goalie gives up 2 goals, fine. But if you give up that 1 goal that ends the game, that's it. And that's the problem with Hellebuyck. It's not a matter of him giving up 5, 6, or 7 goals. You're giving up that 1 goal that completely depletes your team.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Now is your shot to score a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll. This is coming up on May 13th at Busch Stadium. These tickets are hard to get, but you can get them all week on BK and Ferrario and on the Fast Lane. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Texture number 101 with the correct answer to the following question will be going home with a pair of tickets today to see Post Malone and Jelly Roll on May 13th. Here's your question. Earlier today, we talked about an individual that was airlifted not once but twice from a specific place. Where was that place? What was it called? If you have the correct answer to that question in your texter number 101, you are going home with a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll on May 13th. The Rewind is next here on BK and Ferrario. Hey, it's BK for my friends at Victory Men's Health, and it is time to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. For you, that means something different than for the guy next to you. That might mean some help with that unwanted weight, finding a way to lose it. Victory Men's Health has some answers for you. Could be low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, could be learning more about their vitamin infusions, their supplement shop, red light therapy program, or cardiovascular testing. I got help with some of my micronutrient labs. They took those over there at Victory Men's Health. You can learn more about everything they have to offer at victorymenshealth.com. And while you're over there, you can book that first appointment to get your testosterone levels checked, to check out what those micronutrient levels are for you. Whatever it is that unlocks your inner champion, find out about it over at victorymenshealth.com. Super easy process to book that first appointment. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them what it means for you to unlock your inner champion. It's all available for you at Victory Men's Health and online at victorymenshealth.com. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page after the show today, 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. Over there, you will see our conversations with Darren Pang, hockey broadcaster for TNT, Pat Maroon, the hometown hero, 3-time Stanley Cup champion, and, of course, Katie Woo, our Cardinals insider for The Athletic and 101 ESPN on Mondays. So you can check out all of those conversations and all of our Blues breakdowns as well. That podcast is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Also been a great chat today over on YouTube. You can always watch us over there at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. Alex, we've just got a couple of minutes left in the show today, and we'll certainly spend some time breaking down Game 4 again tomorrow here with us. But your lasting memory from the last couple of games, Blues versus the Jets, will be what?
Are you talking experience or from the game?
Sure, whatever direction you want to go with it.
Because experience, I'll say this. I said it after Game 3 when we were on the pregame. That's the loudest I've heard that building since the Stanley Cup final in 2019. And not to go all BK on everybody, but way to go, Blues fans, because you made that place freaking loud. The game mentality for me, man, this sounds like so aggressive and big picture here, but the Blues are setting themselves up for a long tenured success rate. Like, Jim Montgomery was an incredible hiring. We all know that. We've said that for the longest time. But to think about what he's done with this Blues team and to see how they adjusted in 2 games and how they've been the better team in all, with the exception of 2 periods in these 4 games, tells you what Jim Montgomery means to this group. And I think you're just seeing, you're not even touching the surface of what this Blues team is going to be in the future because of the youth, because of Jim Montgomery's impact, and because of the experience that they're going to get with these wins that they've pulled out.
T-Bone, we've got about a minute left here. What's your lasting memory from Game 3 and 4?
I think the Blues are starting to build a winning window would be the one for me. I agree with everything that you just said. Look, they're doing this, and they're doing this without Holloway. And we thought he was the MVP of the team, and they're doing it without him. And you're seeing the adjustments Jim Montgomery is making. This feels like it's going to be a fun run for the St. Louis Blues.
For me, it was being in the building to watch an all-time great player wilt. To wilt on that kind of a stage once again, it's just such a rare thing to see. Like, you don't... It's hard to come up with comparisons for it because it is so rare. For an all-time great player to have these kinds of playoff struggles, we saw it early on in Peyton's career. This is no longer early in Connor Hellebuyck's career. He's had this happen over and over and over again. To be in the arena, to watch it happen, and to feel it in real time as it was taking place, they had no choice but to pull him from the game in each of these last 2. That's crazy. And to be there in person, to witness it, to see the impacts that the crowd had as they were chanting his name.
Oh, that was great.
Amazing. I will never forget that experience of being at the arena for Game 3 and 4 as Connor Hellebuyck was melting
Which
on
one?
the ice.
No, we won Connor.
We won Connor.
Was
that one was
Think of the fact that the dude's going to be an MVP and the best goalie in the league, and the fans were chanting, "We want Connor Hellebuyck."
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.